Everyone's ready. Notice is hereby given that the Board of Directors of the Green Mountain Water and Sanitation District of the County of Jefferson, State of Colorado, will hold a special meeting at 6 p.m. Thursday, February 3rd, 2022 at 13919 West Utah Avenue, Lakewood, Colorado, 80228. This meeting will be held for the purpose of conducting such business as may come before the board. This meeting is open to the public. This is a virtual meeting only due to the recent Jeffco County Public Health Order. The district will hold this meeting by a video conference or video/conference call. To attend, please go to https://us06.web.zoom.us/J89533225776, or you can call 669-900-6833 and enter the meeting ID 895-332-5776. To troubleshoot issues with the connection at the time of the meeting, there is a link, https://support.zoom.us/sections/200305593-troubleshooting. If you still experience issues, email customerservice@greenmountainwater.org and our IT staff will assist you as soon as possible. The district does not discriminate on the basis of race, age, national origin, color, creed, religion, sexual orientation, sex, or disability in the provisions of services. People with disabilities needing reasonable accommodation to attend or participate in a district board meeting can call 303-985-1581 or email customerservice@greenmountainwater.org for assistance. Please give notice as far in advance as possible so we can accommodate your request. I'm going to move to agenda item number 1, a call to order, declaration of quorum. Jeff Baker, present.
Aaron Morgan, present.
Alex Blotkin, present. Sorry.
Todd Hooks, present.
Dave?
Yeah, I'm here. I said it, but guess you didn't hear.
I got drowned out. Thank you. Okay, we have all 5 board members present, so I will declare a quorum. We're going to move on to agenda item number 2, directors matters, disclosure of matters. Do we have any matters to disclose to the public?
No.
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 Okay, there are no closure matters. We will close agenda item number 2. Move on to agenda item number 3, approval of additions to or deletions from the agenda. Do we have any of these 3 items?
No.
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Are we tied to the times on 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9? Or are we somewhat flexible?
Well,
only that Sandra is scheduled to be there at 8. So depending on her interview length, anything past that can is not tied to a time.
Okay, thank you. I just know I only have one question, perhaps 2 for each one. So I'm not taking up much time.
So Kristen, if the first interview finishes early, is Sandra, or could we maybe reach out to her and see if she's available?
I can reach out right now. I can
okay.
step off the call and do that.
Okay, that'd be great. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, any other items on agenda item number 3? All right, I will close agenda item number 3. I'm going to move on to agenda item number 4, public comment. Limit 5 minutes per person. Per past motion of the Green Mountain Water and Sanitation Board of Directors, May 11th, 2021. Members of the public wishing to address the board during the public comment period are asked to keep the comments civil and related to the items in the agenda or to conduct of the district business. Members of the public wishing to address the board will be recognized by the board to maintain proper decorum. Since the Green Mountain Water and Sanitation District Board values your input, we always offer additional opportunities for the public to provide comments by using the district's email system or by phoning into customer service in the event they do not get on during the meeting period. During the meeting period set aside for public comment. So do we have any public comment at this time? Raise your hand if you're online and you would like to do public comment. Okay, going, and gone. I will close out public comment, agenda item number 4. We're going to move into agenda item number 5, which we're a little early. Kristen, are we able to bring Jeff Tyus in early?
He's online.
Okay.
There he is.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
You look good.
Yeah, my wife dressed me.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding.
You can see mine didn't.
Good evening.
Hello.
So here's our thoughts on conducting the interview tonight for you. We are going to, rather than propose to you new questions, we would like to embellish the questions that you had answered that the email was sent out to you with questions from the board that you had answered. So we will probably go through all of the questions and see if the directors have any further comments or questions to follow up with in regards to those questions, and possibly some other ones that I'm not aware of yet. I know that there are directors that would probably like to ask some other things or probably just have this conversation with you. So we wanted it, we're hoping you're comfortable and relaxed. We'd like you to just, if you have questions or need clarifications, please feel free to ask us to clarify or whatever we need to do to get the best results from you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Do you have any questions at this point?
No, I do not.
Okay, so I'm going to, we're going to open it up with the employee question number 1. And this was around the performance reviews, et cetera. I'm going to open it up to the directors and ask if any of the directors have any follow-on questions or conversations related to the first question. Directors?
I have just one that relates to your last paragraph where you discuss critical metrics as those most related or most directly to integrity, safe working behaviors, regulatory compliance, and financial responsibility. My question for you is, where do you place that versus metrics for time it takes to get the job done and the various tasks that the staff does?
Yes. So great question. So we base it on we would create mission, vision, and values. So some of the values like we created for a performance review would be teamwork, professionalism, respect, customer service. So you would tie that directly into the employee's performance review by number 1, for example, let's say here's an actual performance review And the first one is like a value of respect. So these would be the categories. First of all employees are trained on that. And so that respect would correlate directly to, are they meeting the basic goals of that respect? And then the direct supervisor would have to list, okay, they're meeting that. And this is specific examples of the job they perform. For example, let's say you're dealing with a field tech and they're recognized by a customer for providing good customer service on maybe a water main break or something. So that would be a specific example to their number one, their job description, and number two, that core value of respect based on the mission, vision, and values. So we start off with mission, vision, and values, and then train our employees on what those are and get agreement on those mission, vision, and values. And keep in mind, all this has to be approved by the board because you guys are representing the customers. So this is all approved, and then everybody's trained on that performance review. Supervisors are trained on how to give that performance review, and then specific examples of their performance based on those core values are used. So the employees actually engaged. The employees actually, oh yeah, I've been recognized. I dealt with a customer way back in May of that year, and my supervisor recognized me for that directly on my performance review. He says I'm meeting that goal under respect. Then the next one's teamwork. And that way the employees are engaged, and it does correlate to their actual job descriptions, and they receive a score, between 1 and 5, where everything 3 and above is meeting the expectations or exceeding the expectations. Below 3, we work with the employees to bring them up to a 3.
Thank you. I appreciate that information. What I really was looking for, because I'm a dirt under my fingernails ops guy. So I'm looking for your thoughts on metrics for tasks that need to be done in the field. The things that like go down at the same time. How do we evaluate how good our people are at that time? Yes.
Well, one of the core values is efficiency. So if we were, I worked in, my primary job has been operations. So example, how many valves were turned in the distribution system, for example? Are we, is how many preventative maintenance tasks were done? So that would be, a good one for efficiency. So we would recognize an individual saying, okay, this person efficiently turned 4 valves in a day, or, distribution valves, or checked 10 manholes in a day, are provided, fixed a water main break within 24 hours. So that is, so once these values are established, we could build any type of onto those values, whether it be efficiency, teamwork, reliability, all those. So that directly correlates to their job description, but it's up to the supervisor, the direct supervisor, to give the performance review. And also, you have the mission, values, and goals. So it's up to the direct supervisor to set those goals on specific matrix. Like if we're meeting so many preventative PMs, for example, we have to complete all the PMs in a week. So those goals are set, and then we give specific examples on how the employee efficiently completed those PMs. So we could use those metrics, whether it be, meeting the finance goals, we're on budget. If we're dealing with project management, for example, we have a timeline of projects. We're meeting those timelines, and we're meeting that goal of being on budget. So, but it all, we could correlate that to all the mission, vision, and values, along with the goals specific for that department, to roll it all up so everything is moving along with every department, whether it be operations, distribution, collection, finance, engineering. So I see where you're coming from. I'm very good with matrix. I deal with them every day, whether it be water quality testing or preventative maintenance tasks. Does that answer your question better?
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm done, Jeff.
Okay. Jeff, I'd like to ask you, so one of the one of the elements of the question was about right sizing and understanding that. I didn't really see that answer to the question. So, from a board level, we need to be able to understand the justification of staff. Are we right sized? Are we too little? Are we right? Or do we need more? Or do we have too many? Or what, it's trying to understand how, and we used to use things based off of like what they call an employee equivalent, where hours are booked. There's a certain level of booking that would be done with PMs or service work. And then I understand, then you have your administrative stuff with training, meetings, those kind of things that there's, a certain amount of the day is placed for that. And then trying to understand that the district, that the constituents are getting their bang for the buck. So I didn't really see that answered in here. Would you like to talk to that, please?
Performance review would include the asset care program. So depending on if you're using computer maintenance management systems to track asset care and delegate work orders and work tasks, that's still part of the performance review. So in the first sentence of the question, it addresses all safety, compliance, asset care, new development based, that rolls up into the mission, vision, and values. So depending on, if you're dealing with distribution and collections, for example, which I deal with every day in my present job. So if we're giving them work orders to go complete tasks, we could roll that into performance review based on how well they do teamwork, how well they're performing in efficiency, and based on, it's easy, it's really easy to give scorecarding based on how many work orders they're expected to do per week, if they're getting them all done efficiently. And then we could build that staffing, just like you said, on, okay, so if the district's 98% built out, but we're also having to do more, more work with the valves or the collection system because of the age or whatever, then we could try to justify headcount and write those justifications. But it would have to come from those metrics where, okay, we're completing the work orders, we could be more efficient, we could do more preventative maintenance, or we could do more predictive maintenance. So how could we roll that up? But it has to come up from, the field. It has to be driven from the field to the supervisor up, saying, hey, we could probably use another collection or distribution technician, or even justification for an engineer. But it has to be driven that way. But everything would still be able to be tracked based on these mission, vision, and values by correlating directly with what type of matrices can be used, whether it be computer maintenance management systems for asset care, tracking work orders, or budgeting, finance, matching those numbers to actual year-to-date numbers, or tracking projects through Microsoft Project or whatever. So, but that's directly correlated with, we start at the top with these mission, vision, and values, then we roll them out. Then it's up to the supervisors to be more specific on how they determine the matrices for their employees, because nobody knows their job better than the supervisor and the employees. So that's driven and agreed on, and then the employees know what they're being graded on in their performance reviews. They have to be trained on that. So they know that, hey, if I go out and complete all this work orders this week, I'm meeting my expectation on my performance review under efficiency, reliability. So efficiency and reliability are the core values. Does that make sense?
Yes. So if you've got this category where you're getting up 4 and 5, let's see, a score of 1 to 5 is determined by the supervisor for each category, 4 to 5 exceeding the expectation. So is at what point, when I was working with my staff, so, and I had a little bit of a mixed staff. I had union staff. So, everything's kind of baked in with their wages and, what they would get with the bonuses. But then you had the salaried staff. And then, if they were meeting or equal to things, then they would, there was an increase, based on a certain percentage, and it kind of went up from there. So how would you delineate, once you get up to the 4 and 5, exceeding the expectation? What is that, like for just COLA versus an actual raise or something like that? Or how would you bring that forward? And then second part to that would be, would you create, with this in your budget, would you have a budget placeholder for raises, COLAs, promotions, that the board could be seeing prior to approving that year's budget, giving us a little bit of time, or maybe seeing that baked into that annual, we used to call that, live in that box. They would give us X amount of money, and, we had to manage that and stay inside the box. So.
Yes, that's exactly what I do. That's exactly what I've been doing for 20 years is pay for performance, staying inside the delegated amount of money that's approved by the board. So this year, for example, the average raise was 4.5%. And some people, based on their performance reviews, based on their scores into the 4s and 5s, got up to 7%. And then if people are at the 3, they're getting an average of 4.5%. And in order, like you said, in order to get to the 4s or 5s, the supervisor has to be specific on how they exceeded that particular task. So let's say for efficiency. So if somebody creates an efficient way to turn valves in the distribution system by a new type of tool, or set up time reduction on a truck, and they come back and say, hey, we found this new system, we're able to increase valve turning by 50%, and we're more reliable and we're safer in the streets, then that could be a 4 or 5 just based on that. Or for example, in project management, hey, we're doing a new development project. We figured out a way to save money and time by running the collection line or the distribution line this way, then that exceeds the expectations. So the specific examples based on those categories would boost that particular employee to a 4 and 5. And it would have to be the specific task they complete. That way you engage the employee. And then the board would always have to approve whether it be a cost of living raise or the pay for performance. The organization I work for now is all 100% pay for performance. We don't have cost of living. So it depends on your board approval, whether you want to give employees a cost of living raise along with the performance raise. Because I've been through organizations that do both, or just most organizations I work for only do pay for performance. And we engage those employees by specifically saying, hey, these are the tasks you actually did. You exceeded these expectations. You did more than your job description. So you're getting a little bit higher money, and that amount of money is 100% approved by the board before the employees are notified on their raises. So for example, if you approve a average of 5% for all employees, then the supervisors are giving the scores to their employees, and then based on those scores, the delegation of whether somebody gets a 6% raise or a 3% raise based on performance is given out. So everything has to be approved by the board for raises, and if you want to do the cost of living raises. But the engagement of the employee is very important to know. Number one, the direct supervisor actually is seeing what they're doing, is documented all year. So the supervisor is going to have to take notes and say, okay, you're performing at a very high level, or you're meeting these expectations, or you're below these targets, and have specific examples. Because if you're giving specific examples, it helps the employee to engage the employee, and it protects the organization to say, okay, this is why you got a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Does that make sense?
Yes. I'm good. Directors, other directors?
So if I may, please, Jeff, Mr. Tyus, exactly where you left off just now, given specific examples, and can you just expand a little bit on how would you use that same thing, given specific examples, and by the time the whole discussion starts with the board, how could you use that as a tool to build trust, if you will? You know, when you bring, hey, you know, my employees are doing this or that well, and you bring that information to the board, how would you, just in general terms, use the whole review process as a tool to build trust, you know, in what you're presenting to the board when it comes to the whole employee evaluation process?
So the whole evaluation process is based on the agreement of the mission of the organization, the vision, the long-term vision of the organization, and the core values of the organization that is agreed on by all employees in the board. So, and those are posted. So, we post them in all the employees' offices, and this is what's agreed on. And then employees are trained on the mission, vision, and values, and what the goals are set in each department. And then they're trained to say, the supervisors are trained to conduct performance reviews. So number one, the board approves the mission, vision, values, and the goals. Number two, the supervisors are all trained to conduct performance reviews. Number three, the employees know what is expected of them on mission, vision, values, and goals. And then the specific tasks that each employee achieves based on their performance review based on that value. For example, let's say, like I talked about earlier, let's say the value of teamwork. Teamwork's very important. So that's a core value. So number one, they're trained on teamwork, and then they give specific examples. And then the board, you're not going to see every example of employees' great teamwork, but it's always a good idea to drive engagement of employees. You guys probably know this better than anybody, is through recognition. So if we have an employee that's done an outstanding job in, let's say, teamwork, we could mention that in a board meeting. Say, we'd like to recognize these employees for their great teamwork for solving this issue, and they went above their job to do that. That way it engages the team, and then the board knows that, hey, these guys are out there taking care of business. So it creates a recognition. But it all starts with mission, vision, values, and goals, the document of the performance review based on these mission, vision, value, goals, the scores, and then the driving of these up to the board to say, okay, we're sustaining this and we're actually improving. So as you move through the next questions, you'll see the matrix that we can actually say, okay, which you guys are doing a great job. I read all your information on your website. You guys are outstanding. So we could just show more specifically the great tasks everybody's out there working on and doing in the field. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Karen, Todd, do you have any follow-on questions on number one?
I do not.
Karen?
I kind of do. I like everything that you're saying. It's a wonderful system. You've got it all laid out. It is not what we do right now. We do not do any kind of metrics like that. Can you tell us of a time? So that would be instituting change, and that's difficult. Can you tell us about a time when you have led through a big change like that, and what you've learned from that, how you'd go about doing something like that?
Yes, thank you for that question. So the way I have experience instituting a change like this is actually hiring outside contractors that specialize in training all employees like this. It's not expensive. It doesn't take a lot of time. And what they do is, you guys probably been through this many times in your organization. I've been through this many times. They start off with a personality profile test. And so everybody has a different personality. And you probably heard of some of these, like emergogenic, DISC is a big one, DISC. That's one we've been using at Arapahoe County Water. So once you have everybody take a personality profile, you'll see that everybody has these different personalities, and they're based on their test, and they're highly accurate. They're highly accurate scores. So people see that, they enjoy it. And then once they do that, and then they're trained on number one, teamwork. Teamwork sounds easy, but people need to be trained on it. It's quick and easy. I enjoy teamwork dramatically. And then number two, the biggest training after that, you guys well aware, is conflict resolution, because everywhere you work and everything you do has conflict, and conflict, believe it or not, is not a bad thing. It's how you drive continuous improvement. So you have conflict resolution, and then once you've been through that, you set up these mission, vision, and values. So, for example, let's say your mission statement is you want to provide great quality water and service to your customers for water and wastewater distribution or collection with cost-effective billing or something like that. And then your long-term vision. So all the employees agree on that. So think about it. They've been trained on the different personality profiling. They've been trained on teamwork. They've been trained on conflict resolution. And now they're agreeing on mission, vision, and values. All that's presented to the board, the mission, vision, values, and goals. They know that. They know what's expected. And then they're trained on the performance reviews. So they haven't been like given this. They've been trained on it. They've been part of it. So they had the input on the mission, vision, and values. They know what's expected on what they're going to see on their performance reviews, and they're engaged. So they're not like just handing this. And they would enjoy teamwork. And also, I've always enjoyed the personality profiling to find out, I've taken like over 20-year period, I've taken all these 5 different tests, and it's always the same thing no matter which test you take. So it's pretty accurate. And you see other employees like that, and you get to know people and say, oh, this person's this type, and this person's a perfectionist, this person's a creator, this person is dominant, so everybody knows what to expect when they talk to those people. So it drives teamwork. They know what's expected, and they see their performance, and then they're engaged when they're recognized in their performance. And it's assuming positive intent too with your employees, because you're getting them engaged in being a part of it. Does that make sense? Does that answer it?
It does.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So, Jeff, I had a follow on kind of drilling into this. So I know we have PMs we do in the district. I have not, I guess I haven't really seen the whole complete program and how it gets reported. And I think these are some of the high level metrics, I guess we would like to be seeing. We don't want to be down in the weeds as a supervisor or manager, but it's trying to keep some sort of vision on what the district does, to what level, and what kinds of work are we doing. So when you're talking about, and I love stuff that's predictive and preventative, I'm more in the predictive stuff. Are you used to reporting those kind of levels and what the result of being predictive and proactive and preventative are? And having a program?
Yes, I've been through many years of training in predictive and preventative maintenance, especially at Coors. Coors had to run 24/7. So, we were dealing with a very large amount of assets. So it's all based, the overall topic, you better know better than anybody, is asset care. So that's what we're talking about. We have assets out in the field, whether it be pump stations, valves, drinking water pipes, or collection pipes. So we have all these assets, and we have to track them through, for example, preventative maintenance. Preventative maintenance normally is checking the valves, turning them, exercising them, and documenting it. It has to be documented through a computer management system. There's some really, I'm sure you guys are using a good system, but there's some really easy to use systems now, especially with iPads. So for example, we're using a program called ESRI. You guys might use it too, based on GIS. So the technician is able to go out in the field, check manholes, check valves, by exercising them. They make new instruments now to check manholes. We just bought one. It's called a sewer rat. It's actually a high definition sound system that puts a sound wave through the collection pipe to show if it's plugged or not. It's quick, it's easy, and it's easy to use. So it's a very good predictive maintenance tool. And it shows you don't have to stick a camera down a sewer pipe, because cameras are expensive and time consuming. So that's just one example of a lot of matrices we could use out in the field as we build upon that. So, and plus it engages the distribution collection people. They'll say, oh yeah, we're using predictive tools now. And because nobody likes water lines that break or manholes that overflow. So we're going to use these tools, and we're going to track them, and then we're going to use the asset care computer management system. There's some really good ones out there, SEMS, OMS, that are specific to water utilities. And they're real easy to use through operator iPads. So all that's tracked, and we could actually present that to the board on really cool maps. We do it at Arapahoe County. We pull up a map of the collection system showing, hey, for example, and plus you need to show this to the Colorado Department of Health too. I just been through 2 Colorado Department of Health audit, one for drinking water for the sanitary survey, and we're right in the middle of a wastewater one. So we have to show a map that shows we jetted the system and we cameraed the system, and these are our hotspots. Where I know you guys don't have too many restaurants. We have a lot of restaurants in our district, so we get a lot of the fats, oils, and grease they call fogs that plug up collection systems and could lead to sewer overflows on manholes. So we could show these matrix through maps and graphs to show quick and easy that, hey, we're maintaining the system, we're cleaning the system, and we're making the system last longer. Then we could take those matrix and use that data to do long-term capital planning and give you all that information. So if we come up to you and say, hey, we're seeing, our distribution system could be corroding in this area by outside soil corrosion. Right now, the U.S. Geological Society does all the soil corrosion. So we just did it. We're showing, 90% of our district is highly corrosive soil. So we can't use galvanized bolts on our valve bonnets. So that goes back to rules and regs. We say, okay, in our rules and regs, you have to use stainless steel bolts on valve bonnets when new development comes, or if we're going to replace a valve. So asset care is huge. It is a lot of matrix, and it drives everything. It drives the engineering standards, it drives the rules and regs, and everything should be presented to the board in a quick and easy graphs. We present it to our board every month, what the water quality is doing out there, number of breaks, safety issues, all those matrices we present every month to the board. So I could present that easily. I believe in a lot of matrix. I got that Six Sigma certification like 15 years ago, so I'm really into data.
I love data.
Yeah, it tells you everything you need. That way you can make qualified decisions. It's like, okay, looking at all this data, we need to go this direction.
All right. Okay, are the directors good on question 1?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to move on to question 2. I'll open it up to the directors. This is about the discussion around engineer on staff and managing engineering for the district. Todd, anything?
No.
Okay, Alex?
I'm thinking it over if anybody else wants to take a turn. Sorry.
I
Karen?
have nothing on 2.
Okay, Karen?
Yes. In your written interview, you named several advantages to having a staff engineer, which we do not currently have. We have a contractor who serves that function, but we have the advantages of the firm, but we do not have anybody in-house. So can you tell me a little bit more? And you mentioned before about how you'd bring in some metrics to evaluate whether or not you need during the right sizing talk to do that. Can you tell me anything more about ways that you would be looking to see if we needed to have somebody on staff or make a change in that department?
Yes, so I believe in having a hired engineer that looks out for our best interests. Right now, Arapahoe County Water and Wastewater Authority, we have 4 engineers on our staff. And they do work with we do a lot of contract engineering with all the big engineering companies. We're contracted out with Jacobs Engineering, Carollo Engineering, HDR Engineering, Wright Water Engineering, the biggest engineering firms around for water and wastewater. And
can I interrupt? I'm sorry. But can I interrupt? I'm sorry. Can you clarify the Arapahoe? We have a staff of what, 25, 30 people. For comparison, how big is Arapahoe?
We're a little bit small. We serve 33,000 people. I know you guys serve 60,000 people, but we have our own water rights and our own water treatment system and our own wastewater plant. So we have 40 people on staff with 4 engineers on staff. And we do not only contract engineering, we also have a district engineer that's contracted that oversees all of our engineering work for quality control. So we have 3 avenues of engineering. We have our staff engineers, we have a district engineer, and we have contract engineers. And the reason why I wrote the justification the way of it's good to have an engineer on staff is because they're looking out for the best interests of Green Mountain Water and the customers. Because everything revolves around protecting public health and safety in the environment and protecting the customer's best interest. So staff engineers are really good at that. Contract, I used to work for HDR Engineering, and my job was to start up and commission water and wastewater plant, but I was always looking for the next project because we had to charge our time to projects. So if I went to a plant, I didn't have ownership of that plant. I just did my work and looked for the next big work order to come my way for the next big project. So that's the way a lot of contract engineering companies are. I know that we have a really good district engineer. We use Respect Engineering. We've been using them for 20 years. So they look out for our best interests, but they're actually doing other jobs too for other districts. So having a single staff engineer, probably based on your size, would do a lot of wonderful things. You can improve rules and regs. You can improve project management. You can, especially with you guys have, fantastic, rules. I read your rules and regs, your engineering standards. It's all great. You guys have, a lot of good rules for the board. So that engineer would improve in all that, just like it says in the answer there. And not only improve that, the engineer too is also will be able to help troubleshoot other departments, especially in distribution and collections. So they can support that area and then help put together those matrix to give you guys the data you need to make those big decisions, especially with the justification amount you're responsible for, over $60,000. So you got to have that engineering data to say, okay, in the long run, we need to maybe look at replacing this lift station or replacing these collection lines or modifying this system or in new development. Everybody needs our new development standard operating procedure is 50 pages long because our district was only 65% built out, and we get all these contractors that just want to build out and get out. So we have to keep a good eye on them. So we use our engineers for new development to keep an eye on these people because they're going to come in, they're going to hook to a fire hydrant, they're going to use all the water they can, they're going to take shortcuts, and then they're going to get out because that's what they do. They're in it to build something and get out. So our engineers really keep an eye on the new development contractors and make those procedures and put those rules and regs because we are backed up. You guys are backed up by special district laws, and keep in mind, you're also backed up by the Clean Water Act and the drinking water laws, which have big, repercussions. If somebody wants to violate the Clean Water Act, it goes to the federal level. So we are backed up by a lot of rules and laws that we could use to our advantage to protect our customers' best interest. And a staff engineer is really good at doing that. We deal with it every day. We're dealing with people wanting to build out in fields next to our water plant where we're saying, no, you can't build there. So, and it takes our staff engineers to oversee that. That's why I believe I wrote this justification for having at least one engineer based on your size. Does that make sense?
I do have a question after listening to that. Outside contractors, What has been your experience with them as far as them doing, I mean, the best job they can for the least, or do you find they overwork things for money, or do you think they pretty much limit it to the work that's given them? I mean, what do you think of the efficiency of an outside contractor as an engineer?
So I've been with the Arapahoe County Water and Wastewater for 6.5 years, and we've had a lot of build out. We're in the area off Arapahoe Road and Parker, around where the Bronco Training Center is. So we have a lot of apartment buildings being built, a lot of homes being built, and a lot of commercial warehouses being built. And so we work directly with the contractors, and all the contractors are up to the same thing. They want to get in, build it, and get out. So we have to be on top of them. We have inspectors and engineers that we have to inspect them with every step of the way to make sure they're not taking shortcuts, doing tie-ins to the drinking water system, or tie-ins, taps on the wastewater collection system. And we might use Merrick Engineering to approve the drawings for the contractor, because they really want, you guys might know this better than anybody, under all water and wastewater systems, they have to be, design approval. So if somebody wants to come in and tie into our water and wastewater system, it has to be approved by a PE. So if we hire an engineer with a PE, not necessarily they have to approve it, but sometimes we contract that out to larger companies that spit out the drawings, because you got to have a lot of staffing to build these drawings. And then based on those drawings, you're holding that contractor available. So my experience with contractors in our area is they want to build it and get out as quick as possible. So we have to inspect them and stay on top of them and make sure they're doing what is right for basically to protect our system.
Okay, so maybe I don't know that was, okay, so what I guess I was more asking was, do you believe that the engineers, maybe I phrased it wrong, the outside engineers do they efficiently serve the companies, or do you think someone in-house more efficiently serves the water board?
I 100% believe that the in-house engineer serves the water board and the customers. And I work for HR Engineering. Like I said, I was in it to get the next work order, so I could charge my time to that. And when you guys know better anyway, engineering time is very expensive. Mm-hmm. Right now, as we speak, we're dealing with Jacobs Engineering, one of the biggest engineering firms in the world, that bought out CH2M Hill, and we just spent $20 million on a biotreatment system over the last 3 years, and it doesn't work. So now we have to go through litigation with them because, hey, this system doesn't work. So it's not looking out for our customers' best interests. And it took our in-staff engineers to track that and say, hey, this isn't working right. So I believe, one in-staff engineer will look out for the district's best interests more so than contract engineers, based on my experience, both working for an engineering company and working for water utilities.
But ultimately, you're saying, so like, unless the in-house engineer actually does have his professional license, everything, all the plans would still need to be approved by an outside firm, correct?
Yeah, depending on how big the project is. Right now, for example, if we're building a large development building off Broncos Parkway in Chambers, which is big, that plan is actually approved by Merrick, but with our engineers. So our engineers, they all have PEs. They're not necessarily stamping those drawings. They're overseeing it, but they're not stamping it. So it could be sometimes good from a liability issue if something goes wrong for larger projects. But I think looking at your system, you're 98% built out. So I don't see you guys using a whole lot of contract engineers with PEs to stamp drawings. I think, if you have an engineer with a PE, you can approve a lot of things, and not necessarily he's going to have to stamp a drawing or something with his PE.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Thank you.
So I wasn't sure when and how to ask that. And by the way, Karen, you kind of phrased the question I was going to ask with a whole on, staff engineer versus not. So building on that, so if you consider the recent Marshall fire, and then actually I do like what you just said with as far as, whatever engineering working on behalf of the customers and the district. But generally speaking, hypothetically, would you feel comfortable and justified in questioning the engineering involved in the capacity planning in order to ensure resilient water supply to the district constituents? So if you had to kind of go, hypothetically speaking, toe to toe, if you will, with an engineer looking at capacity of the district, and keeping in mind the events that just transpired, would you feel comfortable with that?
That's a great question, because that our water district right now, I have capital planning to try to increase the water storage in generators specifically for fire, especially, we cover Centennial Airport. And so, yes, so the Marshall fire changes everything. It changes how we look at everything. And keep in mind, they were bringing in raw water. So they probably had their own water. When they talk about raw water, they're probably talking about lake water. So they're bringing lake water as fast as they could through pump stations into the distribution system. That's why they had an issue of boiling water alert. So we're tied into Denver water. Well, you're tied into Denver water. So we're going to have to work with Denver water and water storage to say, okay, if we had this type of fire, what can we supply? Because all our water comes from Denver water. So that type of planning, yes, the in-house engineer would have to make a detailed report. This keep in mind, you guys went through this. After 9/11, they wrote the Patriot Act, right? And inside the Patriot Act is the water infrastructure planning rule that all water systems must have a risk and resilience assessment done and emergency preparedness plan done. We just went through it last year. So in the risk and resilience assessment, that would be done by the in-house engineer. And if we had to, we could have them work with it. We work with Kennedy Jinks Engineering to get it done. And so that risk and resilience assessment would address these emergencies like fires or any type of weather emergency. You guys live in Colorado a long time, so we have severe blizzards or lightning. So it would address all that. So the risk and resilience assessment would address how we are prepared for water storage capacity. In the emergency preparedness plan, this, keep in mind, this is all required under the American Infrastructure Act, which is part of the Patriot Act. That would address everything we need to do, and when we build upon that, and keep in mind, we have to report that to the EPA. We have to check that box out. Hey, we did this, and this is what we're doing. So we present that to the board. You guys have that, and then where we stand in case there is a situation like a Marshall fire, and how well we can protect our customers from that. So there's those tools and resources are out there to show what we can do. Does that make sense? So it's risk assessment and emergency preparedness plan governed by the American Infrastructure Act.
No, that's thank you. That's very comprehensive. Thank you. I'm done.
Any other questions on item 2? Okay, how about question 3? Any director questions?
Nothing for me.
Number 4. I had a quick question, Jeff. It's around the education, customer education, communication and stuff. What kind of sustainable ideas do you have? And I know everyone does, but just at a high level, what are you thinking on for sustainability issues and ideas for the district?
Well, I know it's on your guys' website. You are partnered with Denver Water on how they're doing with communication through drought. But what we do at Arapahoe County Water and Wastewater Authority is we put out on our website ideas, we don't come up with those ideas on how to conserve water. We pick them up for the experts, people who come up with those ideas, and we usually put it on our front page of our website, ideas on how to conserve water, and we attach a flyer in the billing mail when we mail out the bills. Hey, these are, and I know a lot of water districts like Aurora Waters. You guys probably read a lot about Aurora. Aurora is going to be huge. The only reason Denver's bigger than Aurora is because of DIA is huge, but Aurora is moving up towards DIA as they're expanding because Denver's kind of landlocked. So Aurora is really big on trying to come up with ways to help their customers conserve water. So we have to engage our customers so they take ownership. Nobody, here in America, nobody likes to be told what to do, as we all know. So we have to engage our customers to say, hey, these are some of the ideas you can do to help conserve water. And part of that is education. Is like if your guys' website shows that really good PowerPoint by Denver Water that shows, hey, look at we have 90-degree days. I've been tracking 90-degree days for 20 years, and in the past 20 years have 9 out of the top 10 90-degree days, and it shows on your guys' PowerPoint. The only other day was 1994. So if we educate our customers to say, okay, things are getting hotter, our snowpack is getting down. In the Colorado River pack that was written in the 1920s was actually based on the highest flow of the river. It wasn't based on low flows. So we pass this education along to our customers and give them ideas on how to conserve water, on what irrigation water is a big thing. It's a big thing in our area too. And that way they could reduce the amount of irrigation water they use by themselves because they're being educated on what the snowpack is, where the water comes from, and how it's conveyed, and what we're looking at in the future for build out. We take care of a system way out east called Elkhorn Ranch. It's east of E470, and it's by Blackstone Country Club, and it's really dry out there. And a water tap costs almost $50,000 because we have a hard time getting them water. So a 3/4 inch water tap is $50,000. These houses sit on 5 acres, and people still buy the homes. So we're having a hard time getting them water. We're drilling 2,000 feet underground to try to pump these homes water. So we work with them all the time on ways to conserve water with ideas that other people come up with. So basically, I'm not going to invent ideas on conservation. I'm going to just pass that information on to our customers. But I really know the watershed because I've worked in this business for over 20 years. I know where Denver gets their water, or where water. I know where we get our water. I know I track the Colorado snowpack every day. I track river flows. I understand the Big Thompson project that the federal government put in, the Frying Pan Arkansas project that was put in, and everything that was built out by the Denver Water. And I always use quotes. You guys probably heard this quote before. So Mark Twain said this quote a long time ago. He said, "Whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting over." And you see that in your business. It is true today. And another quote, you guys probably saw the Moffett Tunnel. When they built the railroad tunnel to Winter Park, there was a side tunnel that was used for the miners that Denver Water took over to bring water, because 85% of the snowpack is melting heading west. So they're bringing water from the Fraser River through the Moffett Tunnel. And when they dedicated that tunnel, the mayor said, water's worth more than money. And it was true, because in 2002, one of the worst droughts in Denver history, it was hard to get water. So yes, I believe in educating our customers on where the water comes from and helping them with ideas to conserve that water. That way they know, hey, wait a minute, we're not getting a whole lot of water in this area. Does that make sense?
Yeah, great answer. Great answer. Thank you. Okay, any director questions or comments on question number 5? Number 6? Number 7?
I have a couple questions. I had to see which ones we were on here. But it's rolling up into all that 5, 6, 7 and how you work with things. Project management. You kind of casually mentioned that you use project management, and you've got some, you like to bring us metrics and data, and that's all great. which again is wonderful. Can you tell me a little bit more about your experience with that, with program management, and how you're keeping track of multiple things and how you're bringing that together? Have you ever used an enterprise project management software, plans for implementation of that?
Yeah, the software we're using presently is Microsoft Teams to track all our capital improvement projects. So right now we have about 20 capital improvement projects going on, and everybody's assigned as a project manager. So I'm assigned to like 4 projects as project managers. So we use Microsoft Teams to update those and track those on what we're doing. I know when I worked for Coors, we had a lot of asset care planners and project managers that use the actual Microsoft project. So I didn't personally use Microsoft project, but I'm familiar with it on how it's tracked with time and dates based on the matrix that go horizontal with times and dates. But I enjoy Microsoft Teams because you can put comments down, you can update everything and everybody can see it. So it's simpler to use than Microsoft projects, but it brings everybody on board too. Plus, in this day of COVID, everybody just goes into the Microsoft project Teams, everybody's on board and they can see the upgrades on the project. We update it monthly on that. So that's the software we use for, and keep in mind, we're engaging all employees. So we might have engineering staff on some of the bigger projects, but we have, the maintenance supervisor on some capital projects too. So that way all employees are engaged on these projects. So it creates ownership and engagement, which make people feel good. Plus they're like a leader too. And when people are taking a lead on something that they're responsible for, that, hey, wait a minute, I'm the project manager of this project. I don't have a PMP license or a PE, but I'm the project manager. So it engages them, and the tool Teams is easy to use. Did that make sense?
Great, thank you.
Okay, I think that rolls us in through like question 9, right, Karen?
I'm thinking 8, but I heard 7, but I have to look at the questions.
Yeah,
Sorry, Jeff.
yeah, I think it's okay. So do we have any questions, comments on question 9?
I apologize. Just like Karen said, we kind of jumped through those. I kind of had a little bit of a follow-up on 6. So Jeff, Mr. Tyus, in the hypothetical situation where there was a disagreement between a manager and the board on policy, how do you generally feel, how should that be handled by the manager?
So I've been trained in conflict resolution. So number one, disagreements used to continuous improvement. So, and I work with our board every month, and I know they're looking out for the best interests of our customers. And so it's my job to do a presentation on something they might not agree with and they might not approve, which happens. So number one, if they don't agree on it and they don't approve it, I'm not going to take it personally. I don't take anything personally. So I'm not going to push it, not unless it has to do with compliance or health. But if it's something else, I'm probably going to say, well, okay, that we got to look at a different approach, because a lot of things, 50% of the things we do present to the board aren't approved. So especially for finance. And so we're just going to go back and look at our matrices and try to approve it a different way. But trust me, I believe in 100% open communication. I have to do that in my position, because there's laws out there for drinking water and wastewater, since we're the responsible, like Denver Water has these where they're treating the water, and then Denver Metro Water Recovery, Denver Metro Wastewater is treating it. So they're under heavy laws, so they get audited. So we have to be 100% open and honest of what we do, present that to you guys, especially the board. And then if you guys see something that, hey, wait a minute, we don't agree with that's what you're there for too. So it's a matter of, hey, we got to respect the board, because they're looking out for the best interests of our customers. But it's my job to give you all the information I know that I can do to say, this is what we see, and this is what happens. But it takes a team of people. That's part of being a team is, like I said, the definition of a team is people with different skills and abilities that share a common goal and hold each other accountable. That's what you're doing. You're holding each other accountable. So you're going to hold me accountable, and I'm going to agree on that because I'm being held accountable. I do it every day. Every day I go to work, I'm being held accountable for things. And just because my board or my general manager doesn't agree with those things, number one, I'm not going to take it personal. Number two, I'm going to either present it a different way or move on to something else or look for things that are different. And open communication too. That's a big one. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so we were at question 9. We rolled back to question 6. We're at 6. We're at question 9. Any questions, comments on number 10? On number 11? Okay, Jeff, I have two quick questions. Well, one of them is probably not quick, and just kind of keep it at a high level. Do you have any IGA experience?
Yes, I deal with IGAs every day. We have IGAs with Aurora Water, Aurora Wastewater, East Cherry Creek Valley Water, Parker Water, Havana Water. Who else? we probably have 35 IGAs. So I read them, and we contracted out to our attorney to write them, to make sure they're written correctly. This is all approved by the board, and our district engineer overlooks them. But I work with IGAs every single day with Aurora Water, Aurora Wastewater, East Cherry Creek Valley. Just to name a few. But yes, I'm very familiar with IGAs. Those are the water ones. And then keep in mind, we do a lot of build out, but our build out is mainly with new development SOPs. So we have a new development SOPs and rules and regs and engineering standards we use to control the build outs in our districts. But our IGAs are mainly with other surrounding water and wastewater systems.
Okay.
I'd like to just ask a question, follow on to that. Very interesting, the number. I'm curious how many lawsuits you've experienced in IGAs over your career.
Lots.
It's irrelevant.
We're in the middle. We're in the middle of all kinds. We're in the middle of a lawsuit with water rights. Water rights are huge lawsuits. We probably have 3 lawsuits with, we're trying to pull water off the South Platte. I work directly with the water resource engineers. We have a water resource engineer on staff, and we have lawsuits from the farmers that pull water off the Platte. Water rights, we were partnered with East Cherry Creek Valley as an IGA, so we're doing lawsuits there. Right now, we have a lawsuit with Jacobs Engineering over a huge contract that was written for, we have a reverse osmosis plant that removes a lot of things, that creates a concentrate that we can't put anywhere because it contains selenium, uranium, all this wonderful stuff. So that my whole career, I've been dealing with, as mainly in operations, as a help supporting data for engineering and legal for lawsuits. And we face a lot of lawsuits every day. If somebody runs them over a manhole and it pops up and takes out a car, that's a lawsuit. But we're protected under a lot of laws. But keep in mind, I document everything, I score everything, and I know. I tell my guys, hey, we got to document dates, times, locations, pictures. I ask my guys to take a lot of pictures and we lost a lot of lawsuits. Like there's a Valley Country Club that was built in 1967. We signed an IGA, I think in 1970 to give them free water. And we took them to court twice and lost. So we're giving a huge golf course right now it's located off of Jordan and Arapahoe Road, free water, because the IGA wasn't written correctly, that we can't get out of it. We tried, we actually went in front of a judge. So the judge ruled, nope, the contract says you got to give them free water. So their golf course is really green. So yes, and then when I worked at Coors, we dealt with lawsuits. At one time, a lawyer from Coors told me they deal with 300 lawsuits a year. And mainly I work with the water rights law, Coors bought all their own water rights. So water rights were a big lawsuits. So I support a lot of data for a lot of different lawsuits. Did I answer that question?
It does. Thank you very much.
I just have one other quick question. What's your time where you live? How close are you to the district?
35 minutes.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
I just had a follow-up. Yes, we are very familiar with the IGAs now, but you mentioned SOPs and you said they regulate new development. How can you just expand a little bit on that? What do you mean by regulate, or what does that mean?
Yeah, so you guys probably know this better anyway. So as a public water system, especially as a special district, there's all these laws that are backing this up. So based on these laws, not only the special district laws, but also the big laws like the Clean Water Act that was passed by the federal government in 1971, and also the Drinking Water Act that was passed by the federal government in 1974. That's what we put in our rules and regs. And you guys probably have that in your backflow. So in our rules and regs, we're backed up by these laws and we're protected. So when we write like a new development procedure, we say, okay, as a special district, we're going to look out for our best interests of our customers, because, we don't want our customers paying for contractors to get rich. And trust me, that's what I deal with every day, is contractors want to take advantage of our customers, of us. So I've been dealing with that for a long time. And so we put that in our SOP. So everybody's on the same page. Hey, we have standard operating procedures. We're backed up by rules and regs. You guys have really good rules and regs. You have engineering standards. You have all that. And then you have a new development SOP that says, these are the steps we're going to take to ensure our customers are protected from some new development, because we're doing the same thing right now. They want to build 200 homes off Chambers and E470. So we got to say, okay, this is our new development procedure. This is our cost. Like I said, a 3/4 inch tap in our district is $26,000. I saw in your district it's a nice $6,000. So the reason why it's $26,000 is because we have to build that infrastructure. We have to build lift stations, main lines. We have to build water rights. We have to bring that in. So that's part of that SOP, backed up by rules and regs. We're protected, and they can't really fight us because there's so many laws that are protecting us, public water utilities. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to pretend to be a lawyer, but there's a lot of laws that protect water utilities. You guys probably know better than anybody, you as a board. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a very succinct answer. Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, directors, do you have any other questions for Jeff? Any follow-up?
I'd like to know what appeals to you about this job, that you applied for it twice. I enjoy seeing you again. Thank you. But what appeals to you here?
Well, it's a promotion. Right now I'm my job title is manager of water treatment operations, water distribution, wastewater collection, maintenance. So it is a promotion. And number two, keep in mind, I grew up, I'm a 3rd generation Coloradan. I went to Evergreen High School. My wife went to Bear Creek High School. So we're familiar with the area. I worked for Coors for a number of years, and it's a beautiful area. I mean, my wife she grew up just on the other side, just east of your district. And I grew up just up the hill from your district. So yeah, it is number one, it's a great opportunity, and it's a rare opportunity because there's not many times a district manager position comes open in a water system. I mean, if you look at water districts, especially if they're going to hire somebody from outside, like Denver's going to promote within. I'm really good friends with a lot of people who work for Denver. I'm best friends with Marshall Brown, who runs all of Aurora, and he's going to promote from within. So to me, this is a wonderful opportunity. I can't thank you guys enough for all your hard work and all the stress you have to put up with dealing with a lot of things going on with this day and age. And it's a beautiful area. I mean, you guys manage, well, I think most of you probably live in that, somewhere around that area. my grandparents lived in Lakewood most of their lives. And so, it is a beautiful area, and it's a rare opportunity to get interviewed for a district manager. So thank you.
Okay,
Thank you for taking the time, Jeff. Thank you.
thank you so much. Directors, any other questions or comments for Mr. Tice?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Jeff, thank you so much.
I have one comment I want to make, if I may. Sorry.
Yes.
Mr. Tice, I want to congratulate you for something that's in your resume that I find truly astounding and I think speaks very strongly to your character. And I heard about this when I was the person on the board who made calls out to the references you offered us. And people were extremely complimentary of you, and that says a lot about your character. But it took you a long time to get your engineering degree. I want to tell you, I don't look at that as a negative thing. I think that's the strongest thing in your resume. The fact that you wanted to be an engineer, it took you a decade to get there, really speaks volumes about your character.
Absolutely.
Yes. I can't thank you enough for that, because, I was married with children taking calculus 1, calculus 2, calculus 3, organic chemistry, physics, so it was like I was up at 4 a.m. Plus I was working, 50, 60 hours a week in water and wastewater systems. So, so thank you. Yeah, it was, I missed a lot. I missed all the primetime television shows in the 1990s.
You didn't miss much.
I can't tell you about any primetime television in the 1990s. So it was cool at night, but yeah, thank you. I spent a lot of time in school. Thanks.
Thank you for applying, and we're in your debt for wanting to make the move to us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for running a beautiful water district.
Thanks, Jeff. We'll be in touch with you.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Kristen? Kristen,
I'm here.
were you able to get a hold of Sandra?
Yes, and she's available to start earlier than 8. Do you want to discuss or take a break first?
I'd like to propose a quick 5-minute break, if that would be okay with everyone.
That's fine with me.
Can we do 10, 15? 10. 10-minute
Karen?
break?
Do you want to go into Sandra's interview? Should I ask her?
No, I'd like to go into her interview next, but
I would advise you take just a couple of minutes more than a bathroom break to maybe write some notes or collect your thoughts. And maybe 7:30 would be a nice even number to tell Sandra to be online.
That'd be fine. Why don't we shoot for 7:30? That's okay with the board.
Yes, please.
perfect.
Thank you.
We'll go dark till 7:30.
Thank you.
Hi, Sandra.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing at this Arctic blast?
It's Colorado. I love it.
It is Colorado.
So get a little bit of change. We can go from sub-zero and we'll go up to the 60s and then back down. So it's, never the same.
Exactly. It's nice to have surprises.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's plenty of surprises here. So we're going to, are all the directors back?
If Alex is listening, yes.
Alex, Karen, Dave?
I don't even see Alex on here. There he is.
Alex, are you unmuted?
I'm back.
There you go.
Karen?
Gotcha. Good evening.
Okay. All right. Alex, are you, I haven't heard you chime in.
Apologies. Had my mute button on here. Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
So we have the 5 directors here, Sandra, and we had sent the questions out via email that you responded to. Those are going to be the things we're going to kind of poke at tonight. There's not going to be any, well, there could be some new stuff on here, but it's going to be mostly around your answers, which you replied to us. So we just, we're going to kind of hope you can relax. If you need us to restate something or rephrase it, let us know. We're hoping you're relaxed, and we'll go ahead and get started. So we're going to start with the first question for Sandra. Does the board have any comments or questions on her answers?
Yeah, I'll start since I asked the first question last time. I'll do it again. I'm intrigued by your idea of developing annual goals for individual employees. Can you talk about your experience with that? I'm long been a firm believer in metrics and team approaches, but frankly, I was stunned when I read your comment, and I think I need to know more. Stunned in a good way.
Good. I'm pleased to hear that. I've had some variation of that approach at several of the employers for whom I've been a supervisor. Eastman Chemical, CH2M Hill, my current employer, Martin. Any classification of employee, of course, must have a number of critical objectives that they need to meet and responsibilities. For example, a water distribution operator may have a responsibility of sampling for X on a daily, weekly, monthly, twice yearly schedule. But for each employee to have the growth that we would like as that particular position, but also growth over a long term that is good for the employee and also good for the company. I'm in the habit of preparing goals for an operator, a relatively new operator. That goal might be to pass his certification exam. For a very experienced operator, it might be, I want to now get my backflow certification so that I can test backflow preventers, but that's not something that's required of every distribution operator, but it's something that an advanced operator might wish to do. Or an advanced operator might approach you with, you know, I'd really like to take a course in blank. I don't understand the biology of, you know, why do we test for coliforms anyway? Or what does the chlorine, what's the chlorine really doing? Maybe wants to take a chemistry course, and whether or not the employer reimburses the cost of that course, that particular course may be an important goal to that employee and may enhance his or her performance on the job, his or her interest and investment in the job. I have a philosophy that when we do the right things for employees, we are in fact doing the right thing for the company. I don't think like we would often hear about, well, we got to do what's best for the company. And I believe when we do the best things for employees, in fact, the best thing for the company does result, because the employees are invested, they enjoy their work, they feel a part of things, and naturally have more loyalty. So the goals that an employee could have, there could be a wide variety of them. And the metrics for those goals are going to be necessarily different. The new operator who has a goal of passing that certification exam, well, that's a pass or fail. And there would be intermediate measures of that goal. Are you completing this course, or are you completing X many practice exams to prepare for the certification? But the ultimate measurement is, did you pass that certification exam? And that's something that the operator must do to progress in his job. But that could be a reasonable goal in the relative beginning of an operator's career. As he advances along, he may become a supervisor of other operators, and there may be a need for him to have a course related to personnel issues, or a course related to learning certain computer programs or whatever. So I believe those goals should be customized for the employee and monitored on, depending on the maturity of the employee and the nature of those goals, might be monitored on a semi-annual basis, might need to be monitored on a quarterly basis.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Other directors? Sandra, so I was kind of poking at the your answers on here, and I know we had originally asked about right sizing of district staff, and then how you would go about understanding that and relaying that to the directors. Can you elaborate on this for us, please?
Are you referring to the question about amount of engineering staff in the district? Is that the question?
It's around we have the complete staff, you know, multiple disciplines, you know, it's the entire district. How would we know how we're performing as a district as a whole? Do we have too little? Are we the right sized? Are we over? You know, how would you know that? Or how would you go about understanding what's going on with the workflow of the district?
Now, I found significant satisfaction in measuring the number of customers served per employee when I led a regional water authority. Now, that's not necessarily going to be the same number for every district or every municipality or city or town, depending on how many feet of distribution line you have, or how many treatment plants somebody runs, or depends on the size and the nature of the district, municipality, or whatever the jurisdiction is. I would seek to look at a rate study comparison to districts of similar size, number of staff per 1,000 gallons of water distributed, thousands of gallons of sewer collected and conveyed. And by comparison and rates, I think we would have some equitable views. Now, we would also, again, we would have those objectives and responsibilities that each employee would be doing. That's critical for making sure that employees are engaged and fully productive.
Okay. Todd, Alex, Karen. Any questions or comments for question one? Okay.
Yeah, question number two.
Hey, Sandra, we're moving on to.
No, I'm sorry. I do have a question. I thought Todd was going to say something. Can you tell me, give me an example of how you have led these systems that you describe, and the goals and everything are good systems, and employee metrics, all of that. But they are things that we don't do right now. Can you give me an example of other changes you have seen, other times you have led through a change like this, and what you've learned from that, how you'd go forward with implementing big changes?
Well, I appreciate the need at times for big changes. Certainly, it would be important to first develop a sense of camaraderie, unity among employees, so that we understand that we're all trying to meet the same objective. We wish to convey safe drinking water to our customers. We wish to convey wastewater to the ultimate treatment unit. If everyone has those mutual goals and can understand why we must identify, we each have these objectives, we have these responsibilities. A lot of what would be necessary, the employees themselves could work toward helping develop. Not that each employee would develop his own objectives, but would provide input to that. Supervisors would work to, in a team of employees. Let's say we've got a team that has 4 distribution operators, or 4 or 5 or 6, or however large the teams are. Work with those employees to, okay, let's talk about what are the things that we all must do. What are the, why are we doing this anyway? What are our objectives? And what was what must we get done each day, week, month, year. The most effective operations that I've seen have these maintenance responsibilities hanging on the wall. I mean, like, you know, like an edict. Those have been developed by the operators. They're the ones who know what absolutely has to be done. Now, a supervisor would come along and say, hey, did you think about that set of bearings that needs extra oil once a whatever? The more that we can engage employees in developing those objectives and responsibilities, if they're not well developed or not developed at all yet, the closer aligned they will be with those.
Good, thank you.
Okay, any remaining follow-up questions or comments on question 1? Okay, Sandra, we're going to move on to question number 2. I will open this up for the directors. And this is around the engineering, district engineering. So I will open it up to the directors.
I have a question on 2. Goes beyond your answer, which I find very satisfying personally. I'd like to give you a hypothetical, and if you don't want to answer a hypothetical, I completely understand. I wouldn't if I were you, but I'm going to ask the question. Let's suppose in your first week as the new district manager for Green Mountain Water, you discover that an outside engineering firm offering this advice has given us really terrible advice based on your perspective as a qualified engineer. What is the first thing you do? And perhaps the second.
Help clarify that. In what stage are we? Have we awarded a proposal? Are we just finishing a study? Are we just finishing a design?
It's an ongoing contract, let's say.
Okay.
For engineering services.
Okay. So I am a licensed professional engineer, happen to be licensed in 6 states, Colorado being one of those, of course. I would have a candid discussion with the engineering team. There might be one person who acts as representative of that engineer, or there might be 2 who regularly attend board meetings or somehow engaged with the board. I would have a candid conversation and express, you've done this water loss calculation, and I see that these things are in agreement with the method provided by CDPHE, but this part of it, I'm not quite following. Can you give me more information? I would go straight to the source and look them straight in the eye, engineer to engineer. Explain this to me. And I have been in the position in which an engineer gave some incorrect advice. And I frankly ended up gathering resources within the utility to correct those mistakes. Not everyone has those resources, but I find that when the management of the utility is able to look the engineer in the eye and ask for clarification, it's a pretty powerful thing.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Now, I I don't mean to indicate that I think there are lots of engineers out there who offer bad advice, but I have encountered those who offer very bad advice.
Well, I would, from my perspective, I'd offer that I've found that there are engineers in the world who think some non-engineers don't know what we don't have any clue about what it is they're talking about, and it might not be the case.
Well, in fact, I stumbled into exactly that situation when I was leading a regional water authority. I found some things that shouldn't be, and we corrected those.
Thank you. It's very helpful.
So I have to piggyback on Dave's question, back on the outside engineers. Do you have a pretty good grasp, or do you, on, like, say someone is doing a study for us and we seem to get some interesting time periods for that. Some seem like way longer than they should be. And maybe that's just due to workload, obviously at a firm, or is that something like if someone told us a study was going to take 3 months and you know it's only supposed to take 1 month, because obviously the sooner we get better data, the sooner we can make a better decision, as opposed to someone if things are put off. And I mean, I don't know if timing, I mean, maybe I'm not talking realistically, but is it somewhat easy to assess how long it should take to get a study or a report on something?
I don't know that any kind of study would be easy, but I can tell you that I've done a lot of them myself and or led or participated in them. Just today, I was preparing a proposal for a certain type of work. I have a pretty good idea of how much time things take and where common delays are. Now, right now, you guys know it's difficult to get almost any kinds of materials. If you're in a construction project, whether it's pipe or and any kind of pipe, there's more of a delay than you expect. But in terms of studies or regulatory needs, I've done an awful lot of them, and the ones that I haven't, I have a lot of contacts. So we could if something sounds like it's that's a little squirrely. If I don't know, I would feel free to pick up the phone and call my buddy John or Ted or Susie and say, hey, this doesn't sound right to me. What do you think? And again, we talked to that group candidly. Now, what's causing it to take this long? Because when I did this a couple of years ago, it only took 6 weeks. What's making it take 4 months in your estimate?
Right. Okay, thank you.
Karen? Alex?
Hi, no, I do have a question. Because we don't currently have an in-house engineer. Part of looking at you, and you bring a wealth of knowledge in that area, but that would also be a salary difference that the district has not had to justify up till now. So I wonder if you can explain a little bit about the pros and cons and ways that that we may save money in other areas, or benefits that you could bring like that. And then would that your expertise there help the fact that we don't have an engineer on staff. Would we still need to look at an engineer on staff if we wanted to fill that niche? Would we need to, or just which you answered about the diversification of companies in your written answers, but I wonder if you can expound a little bit on that and how you would see your position as a manager with engineering experience fitting into engineering roles and filling out an engineering department and contract work.
Very good question. Thank you. I certainly don't want to indicate that I don't have a good idea of what the manager type responsibilities would be. I don't want to indicate that I think those would be minimal, but being an engineer, enjoying engineering, I naturally look at proposals, studies, work products of other engineers, and enjoy looking at those things. I would want to be very informed, and enough so that we could find errors, because we all make errors. We all need a system of checks and balances, and I would like to be a part of that sort of check and balance. And perhaps I can offer an idea of savings by giving an example. I mentioned there had been an engineer whom I encountered as I was leading a regional utility, who gave some poor advice. This happened to be a project on a very small wastewater treatment plant. It was only 500,000 gallons per day. We issued a request for proposals, awarded the work, and the product that the engineer submitted had a cost, an estimated cost of the project of $1.5 million. The whole plant is not worth $1.5 million. We can't. So talked with the board, and our board says, let's reissue the RFP. Let's see if we can get someone who is more practical. So I met with this engineer, and I said, we need a very practical approach. We've had one approach suggested, and we can't afford $1.5 million for this need. And awarded work to another engineer. So help me, they came back with a cost of $2.2 million. So I took some staff and said, we're going to do this. And they said, we don't know anything about wastewater. I said, hold on, I do. And we're going to figure this out. And I promise, this is documented, it's in the public record. We completed that work for $140,000.
Oh my God.
And it worked so well that within 2 years, the stream to which this wastewater treatment plant discharged was delisted from the 303D list. Now, that's an extreme example, but it's my nature to spend my employer's money the way I spend my own. And if somebody's offering something that isn't what we need, I'm going to be involved with it.
Thank you. Impressive example. Thank you much.
So to kind of dovetail into that, I'm pretty sure now everyone's familiar with the unfortunate events of the Marshall Fire. And so along
yes.
that same line, I had a question I'd like to ask is, would you feel comfortable, and sounds like you would, and justified in question engineering involved in capacity planning in order to ensure a resilient water supply to the district's constituents?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, again, thank you.
Absolutely. And in fact, I am currently sort of on the periphery of a couple of districts. One of the colleagues on the same team that I'm on at Martin is very involved, prepares the capital improvement plans. I review them. My boss reviews them before those are even presented to the district and then ultimately revised or approved. So I'm involved with that in the state of Colorado, but I've certainly been involved in those types of plans, both as a regional water authority director, but also I observed many as a state director of water resources when there was a need for a compliance plan, or perhaps someone is applying for an SRF loan. So yes, I'm very, very comfortable with reviewing those improvement plans.
Thank you.
Sandra, one of the questions I kind of wanted to ask around this is when I was in a similar situation myself, having to manage something, and my staff would use third-party contractors. You know, they would start getting a little too, because to your point, and I liked your comment about spending money like you would spend it for yourself, and I would always trying to preach to my my team that is this something we could be doing, you know, rather than asking or leaning on somebody else. So, you know, we have the district has a subcontract engineering group and stuff. I think that sometimes out of the different sectors, I think staff tends to want to lean into that. How do you feel about, you know, checks and balances of understanding, you know, when staff does actually need, you know, third party or contract assistance versus, you know, maybe they it's something we could do in-house versus sending a lot of our, you know, and you know, it's like nickels and dimes, but over a year it adds up.
Absolutely. Well, like engineering, there are other services. Perhaps you need some geological tests. There are other services that must be contracted. You're not going to be able to have every possible professional on staff. Just like if we need medical assistance, we have to go to some sort of doctor. But if employees have the skills and capabilities to do those things internally, one of my philosophies has always been that the closer to the source we can do the work, the more bought in, the more loyal, the more dedicated people are going to be at achieving those goals. The further away from the source we get, the more it becomes just a job. If we contract For example, you guys may have a contractor that you use to send bills to customers. That's very common. The more of that that's contracted, the more opportunity there is for error, for lack of personalization, lack of buy-in and commitment to the quality. I'm not saying that we shouldn't contract out a billing service, but the more that employees are involved in whatever monthly review, whatever monthly process it is that works to get those bills to the biller, the more integrity we can have in the process. Do you have an example of something that has been contracted that you wondered, is that really, could we have done this internally?
I think Todd, Karen, Alex might have some good examples. I mean, we've talked about this. If you guys want to chime in on this?
Well, I guess I think about there are a lot of things that I think that we contract first rather than do it ourselves. And there's various reasons for all of that. And we have lost a lot of cohesion with our changes in district manager. But for example, we have an IGA dispute going on with another district, and it's historic. Our papers are lost. Nobody understands. So we are going through, I think the bulk of that work ends up with our contracted engineer. And we'll have a lot of coordination with our manager and the lawyer. And I know we have an interim manager right now, so it's tough to say how everything is supposed to go and what we'd be doing in different circumstances. But that's an example that springs to mind. With lack of his institutional knowledge that stretches back, it's hard to do anything. You're starting from scratch anyway. But some of those kind of things I would like to see daily decisions on how much things would cost to do construction and tap fees and that kind of stuff.
I'm pretty high. I know there are some things that have to be subcontracted, but I'm pretty high on keeping as many things internal as possible, because we as human beings, we have a tendency to be more invested, more dedicated, more interested in the place that pays our own bills.
Excellent, thank you.
Alex, Todd, Dave? Okay.
I guess I can just, so for example, one of the things that we've been involved with now is the system development fees. And last adjustment that we did was in 2020. I can't recall the exact month, but I was just looking at that a little bit, and I believe, was it August, Jeff? Around August.
Yes.
But don't quote me on that. The point is that before that, to Karen's point, is those fees were not even really, I don't know what all the reasons are. I only joined the board in 2018 myself, but for over a decade, nobody seemed to have looked at those and said, what has the market done? What has the inflation done? What has the cost of construction or anything done? And are we doing the best we can by our district constituents in, with these fees that have been set? And so to Karen's point is, why wasn't there more kind of investment, if you will, in looking at those on a more regular basis and establishing a process whereby, strictly from a process point of view, every year, maybe there could be an adjustment that makes, market sense, that makes engineering sense, but that was not in place. So that's kind of maybe an indirect example of how, if there was maybe a more ownership or what have you of that would be kind of more front and center. So
Yes. And I'll give you again an example of how I approached that. I wanted to do a rate study in the utility that I led. I went to a nearby utility that I knew had a strong rate structure, not necessarily the lowest, not necessarily the highest, but just a sound rate structure. And it turns out their accountant had an excellent method for doing that rate study. And he was kind enough to essentially let us copy the method, and it became an annual thing that we did. Now, given the resources that you guys are describing, that might not be something that your staff could do all by itself, but perhaps your staff could be involved 60, 70, 80% of it, and someone from the outside having a role, maybe leading that study or reviewing the study.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to question 3. Do any of the directors have any questions, comments? Question 4. Question 5.
So I guess maybe I'll ask mine here. Kind of, if say you felt, if hypothetically a district manager felt that they disagreed with the board on a policy, whatever that may be, what do you think would be appropriate way for that manager to handle such a conflict? And this is more specifically not, say, just a regulation or, maybe even a financial matter, but more so a policy that was, a perceived disagreement on.
I would ask the board at an upcoming meeting, may we discuss and understand the background of this policy? There might well be something that I didn't understand, or there might well be, for example, there's a new technology that means that we could do something, we could approach something differently, or there's a new regulation within CDPHE that changes something. Maybe there's something that has changed since the policy was created, or maybe I'm just not familiar with the background of what resulted in that policy. I would just ask, can we discuss this?
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments on 5? I'm going to go on to question 6. Question 7. Sandra, I had one. How would you identify areas that could be leaned out without impact to the district? How would you go about, since you'd be just coming onto this and new and not understanding things, how would you understand if there was an area or opportunity where we have opportunities to probably save the district some money, you know, potential to lean out something without impacting or reducing service to the constituents?
This may strike you as odd, but I've had a practice to familiarize myself with an operation, to actually go out and work with operators and look at how they're spending their time, how things are organized, how do we decide who does what on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Now, I'm not saying that I would spend the first 3 months not even in the office, but I would want to get some boots on the ground time to see how we really spending our time. Because frankly, and I don't mean to diss anybody, but I've found some people who are not as efficient as they could be. And if we approach that with respect, I've been able to make changes that have improved productivity. Now, there are some jobs which require 2 people for safety. We don't cut corners on that. But if it's possible to help folks see, hey, have you thought about, we can do this while we can wait on this thing while we're also getting this done. Sometimes folks just haven't thought about how to be as efficient as possible and maybe they don't realize that in fact is good for their district, and that makes it also good for them.
Okay.
But I like to be pretty hands-on.
That's really good. You're talking about on the same question, you know, our district's getting older. You know, we have aging infrastructure, and not sure, I wasn't sure how much you've worked with the reliability, you know, predictive type maintenance or proactive type stuff for a district. Can you elaborate on any of your background on that?
Be glad to. You guys are responsible for distribution lines, collection lines, and all the appurtenances that go with those. As one example, I've found that the health of a water supply can be largely dependent on regular flushing. Sounds wasteful. It sounds simple, but the very process of that flushing operation is in fact important maintenance that highlights a need for activities that otherwise would go unnoticed. And I mentioned already that the best run operations I've seen operators are totally bought into, we do this maintenance every day, this maintenance every week, every month, quarterly, semi-annually, annually. Whether it's valves, fittings, flanges, water tanks, we need a schedule for proper maintenance. And we need to follow it. It's not just something to hang on the wall, it's something we hang on the wall and we consistently do.
Okay.
Can I follow up on that and ask about your experience in program management and how you would track all of those projects? And is the maintenance getting done and how you would communicate with that to us? Do you have, what kind of software do you have experience in? Have you done anything enterprise-wide that, or at least easy to communicate?
Well, I'll have to admit that most of the operations I've been around have not been software based. That we identify the maintenance that's needed. I mean, we may have that recorded in an Excel spreadsheet or Word file that we print and post, and we may keep records in a spreadsheet or a Word table or something. But as far as having a program management software for maintenance, that's not something that I've found most operational employees to be savvy.
You're true. I should expand on that to be doing maybe other projects as well, capital improvement projects and long-term other things
Sure.
that may, is there anything else that may apply to?
Oh, sure.
Project management?
Absolutely. Engineering projects that I manage or that are managed in an organization I lead. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, does anyone have any further questions or comments on question 7? Okay, how about question 8? Question 9? Question 10? Question 11? How about any?
No, I'm sorry. I would like to, it wasn't my question, but I was interested in, Director Baker asked about the IGAs before on one of those. So do you remember what that was, Director Baker? Your experience with IGAs, can you speak to that at all? Do you have experience writing them or reviewing them?
I'm sorry. I'm drawing a blank on the acronym.
I'm sorry. Yes, the intergovernmental agreements.
Of course,
that we have.
Just as I said that, I realized exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have a couple throughout. So, and
yes.
Do you have any experience? Have you seen any good working examples? Problem areas?
I don't know that I've seen problem areas, but yes, I have managed them in the past. For example, one utility is providing water for another, or wastewater services for another. And I know you guys must have those relationships with Metro or with City and County of Denver. So yes, I have I have managed those and have had good experiences.
Good, thank you.
Okay, directors, any other questions or comments for Sandra?
I have a question I asked previously, so I should ask again, I think. What's your experience with lawsuits?
Well, it's a variety. I've been involved with some both as a consulting engineer, as an executive director of a regional water authority, and also as a state director. And those have all taken a variety of forms. I've served as an expert witness. One of the most fascinating legal issues, it sounds so trivial, but obtaining easements for a water line extension. I mean, it sounds so simple, and it can take years and be fairly painful. So I've been involved with that both in water and wastewater distribution and collection lines. As state director of water resources, I was a target for lawsuits. And you learn to have some really good attorneys and make sure that you're working with folks you can trust and do everything by the letter of the law.
I presume you know, but you should be aware that you would be walking into a non-lawsuit free zone. Green Mountain Water.
Well, I'll admit that I do not have specific knowledge of that, but I would not have assumed that there were no law issues.
Thank you.
Yeah, any other questions from the directors, comments?
We asked two other questions at the end of the last interview.
Yeah, I know where Sandra lives approximately, so I know she's fairly close to the district. That was a question we'd asked Sandra.
Yes.
And it was the IGAs was another one.
And one was Director Morgan's question of why Green Mountain?
Oh yeah.
I would like to know the answer to that one as well. What attracts you to this job?
I've got to admit that being so close to your district, I mean, I'm not a customer, but I'm just a little bit away from you. And just like I think having a lot of your services performed by employees, the closer you are to something, the more ownership one can feel. And it just, I mean, I drive through your district every day to go to well, not every day. We're in the office 3 days a week, at home still 2 days a week. But when I'm going to the office or when I'm going a lot of places, I'm driving right through your district. And I know people I have friends who live in your district, and it's home to me now.
Good, thank you.
Director Hooks, I haven't heard much from you. Any questions for Sandra? Any comments?
I do not. I read all her budgetary stuff and I was all good with that. So.
Okay. All right. Well, Sandra, I think that about wraps it up for us. We want to, the board would like to extend its gratitude for you investing your time and energy into applying. This will conclude our, we had 2 interviews tonight, you and another. And then we're probably going to break out now and start working on and making a decision here.
Thank you very much.
Do you have
for-
anything you'd like to, yeah, any comments or things maybe we didn't ask you or something you may want to throw in there or throw at us?
Nothing that I want to throw at you, but I would like to thank you for spending time with me this evening. I've enjoyed each of your questions and your perspectives, and I am honored to have had the opportunity to spend time with you.
Likewise.
And thank you for being patient and answering all the written stuff and taking the time tonight. Thank you so much.
And thank you thank you for being early. We appreciate that.
Yes, thank you for being flexible. Yes, thank
well,
you.
Now we don't have to till midnight.
hopefully that worked out well for all of us.
I think so.
So
Okay.
you guys are going to be hopefully making your decision, and I should look forward to hearing from you when.
I would say probably this week. We're gonna take probably a little bit of a break after this, and then we have our agenda item number 9 is candidate selection. So we'll go review the 2 candidates. So we should know something, well, probably tonight. So I like to give myself a little padding. So it should be very soon.
Good. Well, thank you and best wishes. I hope I have the opportunity to work with you, but best wishes no matter what.
Best wishes, and thank you so much for participating in this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Night. So do we just go right into it or another 5 minutes, or what is everybody feeling?
I want to, let's take a 10-minute break and we'll come back at 8:40.
Okay.
We're scheduled for candidate selection, agenda item. Well, that's actually, we had a 9:30 break for agenda item 8. We're doing it at 8:30. So for the first time in our history in a long time, we're an hour ahead of schedule.
Thank you, God.
Yeah.
Don't jinx it. Don't jinx it.
So if that's okay with the staff, Kristen, we'll go dark till 8. Why don't we make it 8:45? We'll just and then we'll come back and then we'll work on the candidate selection.
Sounds good. See you soon. Thank you.
Glad we're not doing this at 9:45, Todd.
I am too. Something to be thankful for.
Absolutely.
All right, we're back.
So is this a special executive session or is this part of the regular meeting?
So Dylan, some of the directors have mentioned to me that they would like to be able to discuss this in executive session. Is that appropriate? Dylan? I saw him on here.
He is on there.
He's got his hand up. Jesse?
Dylan, you should just be able to unmute. We've got open privileges right now.
Let me try and call him. Excuse me. Hey, I see we had a question for you, and it's you've got your video and your audio off, and you've got your hand up. Are you able to hear and see us?
I can hear you guys, and I heard that I had been unmuted, but that doesn't seem to be the case.
Jesse, Dylan cannot unmute himself. Can you help us with that, please?
Yeah, I prompted for an unmute, but just looks like the mic's still crossed out there. If it's still not working, Dylan, you might just try disconnecting from the Zoom session and rejoining real quick, and that would be my next best guess.
Okay, yeah, I'll try that. It's still not allowing me to, so I'll log out and come right back.
Okay, we'll wait. Thank you. All right, we'll pause a moment. So Jesse, why he's doing that, we're gonna, if we're good to go, we're gonna probably just drop into an executive session.
Alex, I think you're muted as well.
Two buttons. Sorry. Thanks, Sam. So just make sure we do the magic words and everything by the book.
Well, that's why I'm waiting for Dylan. I don't have the here. He'll have to read that.
Yep. Yes, please.
Dylan's joining now, so we'll see if his audio is working okay.
Okay, I have a audio available option now. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you just fine.
Okay, great. Sorry about that, everybody. Jeff, what was your question?
So Dylan, the directors have requested from me to go into executive session to discuss the two candidates. Is that appropriate for the board to do?
So discussion of the candidates and ultimate selection of if the board determines that ultimate selection should be made tonight, that should be done in open session.
The executive session is for setting the terms of the proposal, contractual terms, salary, that sort of thing, negotiation posture.
Okay. All right, and everyone heard that. So we will not be able to move into executive session. We will be doing this out in the public. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up for us to agenda item 9, which is candidate selection.
So last time, Jeff, if you recall, did we not just make a matrix of sorts on the whiteboard? In this case, obviously don't have a whiteboard. We're not all in the same room. So that, I don't know if anybody's willing to entertain kind of that approach, or we just talk it out, or.
I think we should talk it out. You know, I can tell you, I'll go ahead and start. I think we have 2 really good candidates. I frankly felt Jeff Tyus interviewed better tonight. And my overall opinion of, I think the district would be fine with either. But Jeff seemed to, he hit on everything tonight for me. And I do see the differences to me are, it seems where Sandra is probably used to managing at an engineering project level. And it seems like, and Jeff's more at the staff level, which is where we're at. So is that a good way to kind of a segue to open it up for the other directors? I mean, you know, I think that's a good place to start the discussion.
Well, I will tell you, my assessment is, I felt at the end of it, I felt that Jeff had more basic knowledge of all the working systems. I do feel like he had more practical work experience in running the water facilities and everything that went with it. I think from an engineering standpoint, I would say that Sandra was probably far more versed as an engineer and in engineering processes and in reporting. But from my standpoint, in just literally running the day-to-day operations of the business, I would have agreed with Jeff that Jeff, I think, had a better grasp of the day-to-day operations for an actual water district.
Dave, Karen, Alex.
I'd prefer to hear from Karen before I state my opinion.
I am so torn, but I've got to agree with everything you both said. I think Jeff Tice answered everything well, and he's got a good grasp. I really like the way he answered most of the questions. Like, for example, they both kind of seem to come from the same level of the program management. He had more examples of the metrics that he would provide. He had more experience with what to watch out for the IGAs. And I thought he was a little bit stronger on what his opinions on where the engineering should fall. However, I am tempted. I think that Ms. Dudley likes, my impression is that she liked lots of direct questions with direct answers. And so I think that she held back a little bit of the information that she would otherwise be saying if I don't know, if things were phrased different, or if she would go on. So I think there is more there that could be extracted, and I think she would be wonderful. I mean, look at just the one example of the tank, and we've got that going on, seems like all the time, with the engineering and saving money. And she dug in there, and she did the hard work, getting boots on the ground and figuring out what the operators were. That speaks volumes for her. I don't know. I'm torn as to say they both had their strengths and weaknesses here tonight. And I would be interested in hearing Kristen's opinion on how they answered for from an engineering standpoint at some time too. Probably hear from Dave and Alex too, but I would be interested in hearing that, just to kind of help put things into perspective. I think there was more of an engineering slant with Ms. Dudley, which is appreciated, and more of a managing the engineering slant from Mr. Tyus. So.
Well, so you've requested Kristen to jump in, so
Is
if
that
the
okay
board,
now?
if that's okay with the board, I would invite Kristen into this discussion to answer Director Morgan's question.
Fine with me.
Dave, Alex?
Kristen, I think you're still muted on your headset.
I'm good with yes, please.
So my perspective on how either one views engineering, I think they're both valid from their own perspectives. I think since Jeff has been more in operations and come up through operations, you know, that's his perspective and what he's familiar with. Karen has been in, Sandra has been an engineer, and would take that perspective. And I think she would, you know, maybe similar where I have been time limited and sometimes in my interim position, you know, could have looked at the IGA, tallied up the Alameda IGA and looked at that, have gotten staff to do some investigation in into some of the boundary issues and so forth.
No,
I think they're both valid. Yeah, I
should
this is a
apologize
tough
for that,
choice.
because that was not my intention there. Actually, my thought with the Alameda thing jumped into my head, but I mean, in a real world here, it seems like that decision tree went from Austin to Terry to you, and maybe I'm wrong on that. And that's what I mean, is that it seems like we go through to Terry first for a couple things, and then it had nothing to do with you per se. But I take your point with the operations work on what Jeff was saying. But there's
I also liked though that he, you know, he's not afraid to take on some things you might ask an engineer to do at a later point. Certainly staff and the manager can tackle a lot of that. And actually staff probably does tackle more than you probably perceive at this point of things that go to engineering for later work. There's a lot that staff does on this side of it. And so some of the delays, like, you know, in the IRP are things because staff is busy with things and their input on the IRP is taking some time to get. So I think those things happen maybe more than you perceive right now. And I like that he's not afraid to take those on.
Look, Kristen, while we got you on the thing, let me ask you, in your opinion, which candidate do you think you could get up to speed the quickest? Or, you know, I probably already know that answer, but I'm going to ask it.
I don't think there's much difference in either one. I think either one would come up to speed really well. I think I agree. This is a difficult decision this round. I don't think either one of them would have difficulty, or that I would have difficulty working with either one either to bring them up to speed and transfer, you know, the work and the projects and things that are going on, the issues that are underlying, and the work that's coming up to be done.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'll jump in with a preface to my comments. You guys, the majority of you may have to work with whoever we pick, and I won't. Because after May, I'll be gone. So apologies for this, but the way I come at this is looking at what do I see as the true issues in front of the district? And who best can lead from the district manager position as our point person on the technical side for making sure things happen that the board wants to have happen, whether it be the existing lawsuits, potential future activities, or all the things that we all have discussed among ourselves as the things that are problematic. Yes, there are some narrow things about operations that Mr. Tyus is very good at, or appears to be good at, and would serve us well. But I think the greater challenges to the district lie in outside and fixing the district. Curing the district is probably a better thing than anything else. And I think that Ms. Dudley is hands above Mr. Tyus in those areas. And that's what I would worry about. And I might come back, 6 months from now and remind you that I said, I told you so. But I think I'm very right about that. And all my 52 years of experience tells me I'm right. I thought, frankly, Mr. Tyus's response to my first question to him was a lot of word salad, and I just started tuning out. I don't think we need a touchy-feely operation. I think we need leadership, and I think we need leadership that's capable of expressing itself in true engineering terms when the time is right for those opinions to be expressed. And we know that they're going to be absolutely in front of us next Tuesday. So I recognize I'm probably going to be the lone voice here, but that's where I will vote, or I'll just not vote so it can be unanimous.
Don't do that. We gotta have your vote. I appreciate hearing about it. But can you expound? Tell me a little bit more about the hands and above. She's great on everything else. Like I said, I sense that she has the experience. She's been expert witness, expert testimony. She's been involved. I find she's very straightforward. And I think she would tackle any problem head on. And that is 90% of the problem, I think. I'm not sure if I don't get that impression from Mr. Tyus all the time. He works towards a solution, and it sounds like, he's goal oriented and positive and very positive. But if there's a problem, I think Ms. Dudley would go after it head on. So that is great. But what I don't know is if she's got the experience, can she cite examples where there would be problems with looking at an IGA, or with he talked about the corrosive soils, and she did the geology a little bit. I know they've got that, they both do, but the other kind of management issues, I didn't hear the same level of answers from her, I don't think.
Well, can we hire them both? One as an engineer and one to run the operations?
If it comes down to, my first concern is to hire a manager. If we need to hire an engineer as well, that can be addressed later. And that, I think Mr. Tyus said explicitly that he would evaluate that, he'd look at that, and he's got engineering background as well. But number one is management to me. And so that's where I'm coming from. So I know they both, she's really got it. She just doesn't, I don't think she articulates it always as much. It's more on his mind. Tell me where you saw Director Garner.
No, can you be more specific in a question?
What did you see in her answers that led you to believe that she's got the better management experience for us on the day-to-day non-engineering things?
Well, she's been a regional director before. So she's had all the experience, and I suspect that she was not going to insult us by telling us what we already know about how that works. She's done that at, she said, at the federal level, she's done it at the state level. I have the added benefit of having been the one who contacted all the references for both of them. And the things I heard about her were hands-on, direct supervisor, expects and gets the best out of her people, and doesn't have any issue at all in dealing with conflict. Does it with a certain bit of grace, which would be nice. So I mean, I'm comfortable with that. That's not the issue. Management offends me, frankly. The word management offends me. I believe in leadership. And the one thing I worry about Mr. Tyus is something, Karen, you and I have talked about previously about the past experience is just too much touchy-feely stuff. And I don't have any problem with that personally. I've managed that way, but I hate management. I believe in leadership. And I think that she's would best serve the district in being our advocate. I mean, I can't imagine that she would disappoint us if we lose the appeal and have to go back into court for a full hearing with the judge. I would much rather have her being an expert witness or finding us good expert witnesses than I would Mr. Tyus. I don't think he has the gravitas to do what the district absolutely needs. Just my opinion.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that there is a difference, that management versus leadership, and maybe that does sum it up what I was thinking too.
Well, so
It's tough.
I'm going to chime in, Dave. So, one thing and it stuck out when we were talking about the leadership, and it was with Sandra, and it seemed like most of the goals were around, the performance was around goals around education. I didn't really hear goals around performance, day-to-day work.
Well, she gave us an example, and we didn't ask her for other examples. We couldn't have done that.
But we're talking about managing a district and employees day-to-day. The objective is managing the district, and yes, education is it's part of that, but your job is the bulk, right? So
I just simply think that if you give her the task and tell her what the requirement is, she'll deliver what you want. She was giving you an example of the way the firm she has worked with most recently, the last two ones, operate. As a matter of most recent experience, and I appreciate that. I mean, I don't think either example is highly relevant to us, but I think we might want to think about what it is we offer. If we can't offer people the salary they like, maybe we can offer them some other benefits that are useful, help the district. And I think that's what she was getting at, was things that make them better employees. And I kind of like that. I mean, who wouldn't want better employees?
absolutely, you want to build your own. That's for sure. You'll get the best that way.
I would rather homegrown them than bring them in from somewhere else where they have other cultures that are would infect the way that we think things ought to be run.
Todd, Alex?
Well, I'm looking through my notes here. For example, Ms. Dudley did mention that, if you are to implement change, you first want to create a sense of camaraderie amongst the employees. So, I would say that's, yes, probably more of a leadership trait. one thing that did speak to me, for example, is the example she cited in, go to one engineer, $1.5 million, go to another, 2.2, and then you work with the staff and they got it done for $100,000. That I thought actually, that was one thing that before, and the education thing also kind of spoke to me in the sense that I would rather, if there is a skill that would benefit us, as in us, the district, to have in-house, I think it would be beneficial for the district to pay for the employee to attain that skill and to, retain that skill in-house. So be it, again, some sort of a training course or anything like that. With Mr. Tyus, though, for example, he was very strong again on bringing the engineering in-house. That spoke to me as well. He was very adamant about, kind of keeping, again, protecting basically the constituents of the district by being very diligent with our requirements for new development of how we perceive and maintaining and upgrading the plant. But again, to Karen's point is, I don't know if it's just a matter of communication style or if it's just we didn't ask for more, or I'm not sure, I guess. I'm really on the fence here, I guess, with both candidates are strong in their own ways and some similar ways, but also their own ways. So
Well, I thought everyone would have had more questions. I guess I was kind of shocked that collectively as directors, we didn't ask more questions. And I mean, here, and that's always the danger of this stuff is, now the ship sailed. So you can only go by what you have. Todd, are you going to weigh in?
Well, I guess like everybody else, like I was saying, I got the impression that she, from an engineering standpoint, was like, heads above him in her experience and her engineering ability. I also got the impression from him that on a day-to-day, make every pipe work, make the valves work, keep things maintained, have the equipment running right. I mean, he struck me that he would watch over that, I think, better than her. But so that's why, I guess it comes down to, do we want somebody, so like what I'm hearing from Dave or Karen is maybe that Sandra is more of the visionary, more of the overall, like a bigger picture person, where Jeff is the day-to-day operations guy that makes everything run.
I agree with that completely. I think that's a really good assessment. One of the things that struck me as I was listening to a couple of her answers was, how would he approach the Ravine Bridge and how would Ms. Dudley approach the Ravine Bridge? And I see two different things. I see with him somebody who would want to get together with Terry, with the city, and have a little let's all work this out session. And I see with her is she would say this from an engineering perspective and an easement perspective, and she talked about having gone through that easement process, that's exactly what we need, is somebody who can be a pit bull facing down what we face, because we're looking at a big bill that our constituents don't know about. And I would be much more comfortable as a district resident with her leading that activity than I would with Mr. Tyus. Just my opinion.
I agree. I think with at a basic problem solving level, I think that the way she would attack a problem, like I said, a little bit more heads on, I'll confront it and figure it out. And he did that as well. So again, I'm torn. But
Honestly-
I think she would end up doing what I would
I
do.
think that she would be much more like the board in
Yeah.
her interaction with others than, or like we would wish we could be. Sometimes we can't. And I'm not sure Mr. Tyus brings that same, I'll use the word again, gravitas to the arguments.
I thought he had more of a sense of the rules and regulations, what would be needed, what the things he would have to watch out for from a system-wide standpoint, though. And he talked about that a little more than she did. And again, that doesn't mean that she doesn't know, but I didn't hear it articulated as much. And that could just be his operational background, but that is in the forefront of his mind. When it comes down to it, I'm struggling to find what my decision criteria would be here, because I kind of disagree with, I think he's got a vision. I mean, he is a little bit more visionary. I mean, look at, he's got a long-term plan and he works toward it. And I think he would be ambitious. He wants to do something here. He wants to be a manager and he wants to make his mark. So on the other hand, I worry that he does want to make his mark, and we are kind of small potatoes. We don't have any treatment plants. We don't want to do lift stations. We're 90% built out. So I think he would do his best. I'm a little torn.
Well, he did
We're
talk
committed
about
to
it.
getting
Sounds
this
like
done.
he had more experience with IGAs, you know, and I mean, as almost a day-to-day thing for him. I liked him talking about asset management. And Kristen, you could help me out with this. What is the ESRI, the PM program? Is that something we use here in the district?
It's Esri. It's one of the big firms that provides GIS software. So I believe that's what Sam and Jesse are utilizing. Sam, am I speaking out of line here?
Yeah, that's correct. But we run our work order and asset management system through Elements, which links in with our GIS system.
So you guys were, you know, chiming on this. He's talking about the maps that they were able to create. And then this other thing I liked was, and Christian and staff, you guys are closer to the ground on this, but I liked his idea of using the sounding device on sewers rather than cameras for looking for blockages. Do you guys have any experience or opinions on that?
I wrote that down and I said, that's a great idea. I mean, I don't know if it's cost effective, but I mean, I like the concept of it.
There's so to the first part, just discussing like mapping stuff, or specifically to the sewer question, Jeff?
Well, I wrote on here, nice maps created, or, you know, he made a comment, you know, which I know that we're working on this kind of stuff and easement issues. But then I liked when he was talking about using this sounding device for possible blockage in sewers, rather than, I'm sure when you have to set up the cameras and, you know, and crawl them through the pipes, it's quite the time. I just was interested to know, staff and Kristen, what your thoughts are on that.
So
I don't have any specific knowledge on the sounding device. We TV everything currently, and they have a maintenance schedule where they TV everything, I think every 2 years or so.
I think that's something that that's what I mentioned at one of our meetings, I think last week or so, that the pool is bringing on as a new technology that's approved for a discount if you, some discounts to the equipment or the services if you adopt that as part of your preventive or predictive maintenance. And I'm trying to coordinate with staff and just find the day that we can get everyone together to see that presentation. So far we haven't had our schedules align. But that's something that we'll look at and see what the pool is offering and the contractor that they're kind of fronting for that service, and then we can see beyond that if there are other contractors who do that kind of work. I'm guessing that's about what that is, and maybe they're just a step ahead of where we've been. I don't know how long it's been an approved maintenance technology. I only heard about it with the renewal and the contact change. It took some time to even get me the information from the pool. So
I cannot speak with any authority on this kind of sonic device, so I will refrain. I don't want to. I have no opinion because I don't know anything about its technology. As far as our TVing, I would defer personally to Josh and Austin for their opinions on like how that functions. I do know just anecdotally and very briefly, you know, we have caught lots of things that we've seen with the TVing that, you know, I don't know whether or not this other technology would catch some of those same things, broken taps, other various issues. Just a thought. Usually there's never a silver bullet technology. It's rare that you catch everything. So there's always pros and cons. As to speaking to just the map production stuff, we actually have, I won't go into it now, but if the board would like to hear about a lot of our roadmap on mapping, I can go into that. If the board wants to hear about it at this moment, I can detail that, but I don't want to derail anything that you're talking about discussing with mapping. So I'll defer to you on if you want us to detail that further now or not.
Well, it kind of just goes into what's hand in hand here. You know, I see Jeff more as the is this operation. I mean, this is what he's done. This is what he's grown up in. And I struggle with this too. I think there's two great candidates here. Honestly, I don't think you go wrong with either one. I think it's where you're tilting, you know, and we talked about the strategic direction on some of the stuff that is not the day-to-day I say it's not the day-to-day stuff, but it transcends the broken pipes and those kind of things. So
Jeff, could we have a board discussion, please, and not staff?
Yeah, I was interested to hear. I did want to hear what they had to say, though. So, yeah, go ahead, board.
I've always kind of said this. I mean, there's this management stuff. Hiring people is not my wheelhouse, so I'm really on the fence here. Again, I'm just looking back through my notes and, you know, there's either person has pro and a con that I just can't find a tiebreaker here for me.
I just ask you all to think about what the board faces or what the next board faces, particularly if we lose the appeal, which if you talk to, well, I won't go there. And the other two major issues we face with the tank and the ravine and well, and the new development as well with Alameda. I mean, who's best suited to make that happen? To me, it's a clear answer. If you all don't agree it's a clear answer, then we clearly have the different views that are not reconcilable, and we probably just all ought to move on.
Yeah, I don't think it's that at all, Dave. I think we're literally sitting on a razor's edge. I don't think I don't think that's true at all. I think we're literally we're seeing really two great candidates here, and I think there's, to your point, there's a strategic level that needs to be considered here, and I'm honoring that. I mean, I'm open-minded. I wanted this, we need these kind of discussions. So, But I don't think I don't like hearing from the other directors like, well, I don't really know. Well, we're the ones that got to make up your mind. I'm telling you, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, well, it's pretty clear where my position is, so I'll just back out and you guys can.
Well, no, that's not it at all. Look, this is a discussion, and this is how you make things better. You have to be able to talk about these things and debate it. I mean, we offer opinions, right, and then see how it contrasts and stands the litmus test out there. I think this is a great idea. This is how I like doing things. I can be convinced. I can be swayed.
Well, I'd be happy to ask, try to answer questions from my perspective as to why I think Sandra is the better candidate.
Okay, so let's go back to Dave when you called the references.
Yes.
So
I have notes on all of those.
Pardon me?
I have notes on all of those people that I talked to.
Well, I don't know that I need the notes, but so what did Jeff's references like? What were his strong points from the references? Or did any of them offer any weaknesses as well?
Not intentionally. Some of the things I heard were his people follow him. That's important. Gets the job done, won't quit. And I see that in his resume with his effort to get his engineering degree. I really do applaud that. I think that's marvelous. Respect from staff. Gains people's respect. That's the key word is I heard all through it is respect.
Okay, how about with Sandra?
Somebody who worked with her, was in grad school with her, worked with her, and worked in adjacent labs. Firm leader, not manager, firm leader, results oriented, worked amazingly well with state officials in the state of Tennessee. Someone who was her deputy at a position said extremely on the ball, hands-on, totally professional, wants the best for her people and the mission and gets it. The last one, I think, well, I have others, but I mean, just a couple here. Fantastic human, great teacher, fun, humble, grateful, gets the best out of everyone, handles professional conflict brilliantly, preserves the fragile male ego. I thought that was hilarious. And she was working as a private contractor at the time, and the person I was speaking to was a federal government senior official who said that Sandra educated her on so much she didn't know and did it in a way that was not shoving it in her face as, you're the big person here who could, ruin our day in this business, but here's what you're wrong about, here's what you don't know. And I think, yeah, it's all kind of the same, gets the job done. Those were the opinions of 8 different references I spoke to, 4 for each.
So why don't you tee up the thing where you were talking about, let's put Tyus and Dudley against the Ravine Bridge, the tank issue, the Alameda IGA, the Big Sky thing. That's probably a discriminator that you're going down, and that's the vision. I want you to kind of elaborate more how you would see if we had them side by side. How do you see that working or not working?
Okay, that's really an unfair thing to do for each of them. I'll preface that, but I'll do it anyway, because I've never been known as a terribly fair person. With Big Sky, we're talking about people that can outspend us by great magnitudes for legal teams. We're going to be crushed if we lose the appeal. So what's our best strategy? It's the facts. I would prefer someone like Sandra, because I think she has the experience, particularly experience as as an expert witness. I'm one of those myself. I know what that kind of pressure is when you're in a federal court in front of a federal judge. And you know, you have to justify that big amount of money you're getting. I think she has the experience that we need in that role. And who else are we going to rely on but the district manager to bring us the facts that we need to have? And where is Dylan going to get the facts? Where is any other attorney going to get the facts for what's possible? And why is Big Sky wrong? The same would apply to the tank issue. I don't know that either one's been down inside a tank. I don't know that. You might argue, well, Jeff probably has, and it may be true, but I would expect that if Sandra didn't have that experience, she'd go get it and have the network to provide that kind of expertise fairly quickly. She might also have a greater amount of access to experts that we might need for other reasons when we're out looking for experts who need to give us advice on, you know, commenting on things other people have done for us. Again, Ravine Bridge, I think that's a no-brainer. I think we know what we're facing there. It's not that we're going to have to do something, or I should say it is that we have to do something, not how we're going to do it. And so the only thing left is, how do we interact with the city? We can't do it. We're not going to go talk to the city ourselves. I guess two of us could go with the authority of the board. I don't think I'd want to be in that position. I don't feel expert enough to be representing the district there. Karen and Jeff, you probably are the best qualified to do that. And who would you feel most comfortable having with you in those meetings? I mean, I'd be delighted to take on the staff of the city of Lakewood, but that wouldn't be very productive because there'd be dead bodies everywhere, probably, figuratively, not literally. But I would just be much more comfortable with Sandra's level of experience strategically. It doesn't have anything to do with how many valves you've turned or anything else. It's, you know, what's the best solution from an engineering standpoint. And I'd be very comfortable with Sandra's work on that. That answers those three sort of tests we have there that we're facing.
Okay, I'm going to pulse it back through the other directors. So based on what Dave said, I want to hear, has it changed any of your opinions?
No, listening to that kind of made me think, no, I don't think I'd be afraid to leave any of those situations to either of them. So that I think we have two strong candidates. I do think there would be a higher probability of Ms. Dudley coming up with an out-of-the-box solution. But I don't know what I base that off of.
Do you mean out of the box or outside the box?
Outside, you're right. You're right. But I don't think that there would be anything wrong with having either one of them work through those situations, and you know, especially half of all of those situations is diplomacy more than anything else. So, and they, you know, they're both strong with that. I think I'm I know I'm taking a long time to make a decision here, and I wouldn't mind sleeping on it, frankly. They interviewed much more closely than I was anticipating.
Well, and that's possible. We could, you could propose postponing the decision too. So, I mean, and, I told everyone going into this, you don't even have to make a selection. If everything was bad, you don't have to pick somebody. You could always start all over again. So, don't chain yourself to something that's going to make a bad decision.
We've all been discussing things that we didn't ask them about, as in addition to things we did talk to them about. Is it possible to do a second round? I guess that's a question for Dylan.
Yeah, there's certainly no obligation to make a determination.
Well, see, there you go. So,
I guess to that point, my one, I guess, sort of a trepidation is that maybe Miss Dudley I don't know if it was holding back or just maybe, again, some people are just more direct and you ask me a question, here's the answer, and I'm not gonna imagine the other scenarios that I need to talk about because, you asked me a direct question. So that's why I'm kind of struggling with this here. I feel like I'm maybe missing some information here in a way.
Well,
but that's just me.
But that's on us because we had 11 questions and, we should have been collectively asking more questions and you weren't bound by just these 11 questions, and that we cleared that with Dylan.
And
so
that's maybe true, but again, there's that prior experience of us being beaten with a stick of what we cannot do, right? So to some extent, it's not an excuse. There was still a bit of a, what we cannot do or how to, and again, this is not my wheelhouse. So this is just me speaking. I can't speak for anybody else on the board.
Where I would probably disagree with you, Jeff, is that I think a lot of our discussion right now is how we think they are going to act in situations. And we could have asked them that, but I don't know that, I'm not sure how you answer if, when we're talking about diplomacy or working with the city or working with somebody or being in a certain situation, like to me, I had zero doubt that Sandra Dudley was super smart in her area, zero doubt. I also didn't have much doubt that Jeff knew the basic operations and how to run a water, facility. And so a lot of we can ask them technical questions, or how would they do this with an employee, or how would they do this with metrics, or how would they do these other things. But I think we're trying to boil this down to who has some qualities. And I don't know if we need to zero in on that, is there additional qualities that we're really wanting in this leadership role that we need to define, so we're all striving for the same person? Or should it just literally be, it can just be, we just vote and go from there. But I think a lot of these qualities aren't necessarily interview qualities. Like an engineer, when I deal with engineers, often they're a lot like what Karen, they are quiet. They answer directly. They're not necessarily going to give you a broad-based answer because they don't like being wrong. They're pretty technical. They want to zero in on what you've asked. And likewise, I feel like, again, they probably would have two different leadership styles, and each one would have its advantages. I think this is a lot harder than it seems on the surface.
I agree, because I thought about asking those situational questions and, you know, without the full, we know more. It's not fair to ask them. I wondered about that. I mean, we did ask, you know, fumbled with IGA, that or the specific how you contract things out. And the answer was, you know, she understood. But you know, you can't go into the details. That didn't give a good answer. I think it gets confusing because I do like all of her engineering experience. And I do like the way she handles those problems. But like I said, first and foremost, it's a manager position. We were only looking at manager duties and the experience with the rules and the regs and all the pluses and minuses from that side. He answered those more than she did. That was it. So if we were not looking at the engineering at all, and this is a manager position, I wouldn't have any doubts on who to go to. But we do have I think there is a lot of engineering that goes into it. I think that was a problem with Greg before, that he tended to hand off some things that he just wasn't comfortable with because he said he's not an engineer. He didn't want to look into that. And I don't want to fall into that trap. I don't think we'd have a problem with either of these candidates. On the other hand, I'm wondering too, you know, both of them are hands-on. So what would happen, I guess, for example, Tyus says, no, he would have no plans on being hands-on and doing the engineering stuff, but he would like to have a staff engineer to work with. Right. That's another position. On the other hand, I wonder if we're going to end up in the same position with her as well, because she can't do management and engineering at the same time. But maybe she would end up needing to do that. And that is kind of something that happens when you hire your expertise. If I'm a geologist and I hired the geologist, and there all of a sudden you need a geologist on your staff. So sometimes that happens. And you see a need, and there's a lot of things that you can do. Sometimes that's valid.
So let me jump in on one thing. So, we've got Kristen on here. Kristen, are you still putting in about 20 hours a week to manage the district?
Heavens, no.
Oh, well, I just remember the initial bid. Okay, are you at 40?
Yeah, that was just to be sure, if I needed to cap that you were okay. But, generally taking on these projects and addressing all of the things that are coming up and has been more hours than that for sure.
Okay.
So and then there's still a lot of projects left kind of off, so if we were to talk about beginning the, taking on this work of developing the performance reviews and kind of going back and digging into that's some time and effort, working with staff to find the reporting metrics that make sense for you and that, flow best in terms of a meeting and present the things that you're interested in. That will be some effort that, I haven't begun or started in a lot of those directions, just because I'm not full-time manager and I'm definitely over 25 hours. I'm probably not at 40, but somewhere in there, those things would take on. Then, I've never taken this term, I haven't taken any steps out in the field. I did make a handful of trips out in the field, but beginning that work of getting to know the operations and helping boots on the ground and understanding the operations, that's another chunk of time that will come, to a full-time manager. So all of those things are there. And I think being the manager of this district is a full-time job in itself. The side engineering studies, some of them you can do as part of management, but many of them will need an engineer as well.
So in your day-to-day stuff, or just your opinion as a working manager in our district, what percent of your time do you think you had to and I don't know if that's even a fair question, but what percent of your time do you think you are dealing with engineering type issues in your limited time with us? Well, it's been a couple, you've been with us a couple of times, so I don't know if you have a good feel for it. I would imagine you do. What's your thought?
Yeah, that's hard to say. I mean, I think there are things that I'm sure there are things that Greg deferred to Terry that I would pick up. Like we talked about the IGA analysis, or just tabulating that and looking at those old documents that I haven't picked up. And I think actually is coming to Dylan really to read and come to that report, because Terry is also very busy. You know, if I were full-time and more time, could I pick up some time for that? Yes, but then I'd also be trying to be in the field. I'd also be trying to network with the other distributors and learn from their best practices, and just interacting with them about things about regional resilience and all of the issues that come with that. Like, I'm not having those conversations right now, and I know they're there to be had.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, did that push anyone's thought process one way or the other?
No. Kristen, can you you have any idea what the sense of salary, if there would be a staff engineer as a separate position? Are we looking at, because we've got a higher salary here for the one, and there's a difference between these two here. So if we're looking at, again, a manager hiring an engineer, there's gonna be savings in having a knowledgeable manager engineer, but I think we've got that covered with both of them. I don't know. So tell me about that. Can you make any guesses what we'd be looking at for this? I don't even know if that's a consideration here, but I do worry that will end up that way with either of these hires.
Yeah, I'd hesitate. I mean, I could give you a pretty broad range, but I don't know for sure.
Right. Right.
I think there's some, and again, it depends on if you're hiring a
What you're
PE.
hiring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
We might also think about the opportunity to bring someone in part-time as a staff engineer. Always expand it to a full-time role if that was appropriate.
Yeah, and I don't want to borrow trouble on this. We weren't discussing a staff engineer. It just seems like it's kind of more, you know. I think having somebody with appropriate oversight on this stuff full-time would save us money long-term. And I like the institutional knowledge and our manager being able to have the discussions. I think our manager should be going out and having the discussion with Lakewood, for example, on anything, or with Alameda, anything. I think the manager should be our point person rather than Terry, which I think ends up to be where it's at in a lot of cases. And there's a lot of work here that he's got to do. A lot of it is just he's got institutional knowledge. He's been around forever. So there's reasons. I just like to change some of that practice because I think it's healthier for the district to have the manager do it. Is it possible? Can I suggest sleeping on this until we have another meeting Tuesday with a plan of action or a suggestion there, unless anybody else wants to put a candidate up for a vote? I don't know how I'd vote right now.
Well, you could do a straw poll or just go around and Karen, or we could ask, how does the board feel? Would you like to wait until the next board meeting, which is next Tuesday, to make this decision? We could put that on the agenda, or do you want to move forward and call the candidate tonight? Dave, I know you're ready. Have either of the other directors made their decision?
I am unfortunately not going to be helpful in here. I don't think I'm 100% ready.
Okay, Todd?
You know, it's funny. I think I would like a better definition of what we want as the manager, because to me, I think they're both super viable. And I think if our definition was more narrow, I think it would easily separate them. I mean, but you know, I don't even know if that's worth the time to do.
I think it's worth it, but I don't have, that's part of what I'm struggling with too. That's how it's all going to fall out. That's, are we looking for the manager, engineer? What's the definition? What are we doing? And I have enough information based on the interviews and the questions. I have enough information. I guess I thought there would be a clear fallout, and I'm really torn. So I'd like to go back and process where my priorities are at and who's going to best answer those, because they're both going to be phenomenal in their own way. So which way do I want? That is my problem. That is my problem, not theirs. And I can't answer that tonight.
Okay, we're going in a circle. So I'm going to move to postpone the decision on hiring the manager until the next regular board meeting.
Second.
Okay, we can have discussion now. Is there any discussion? No discussion. Call the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Todd?
I said aye.
Oh, I can't hear. I think we cancel each other. Okay, so it passes. So
Well, Dave?
I did not vote.
he said he wouldn't vote, and his mind is made up, Alex.
No,
He's
fair
ready.
enough. So,
Yeah, I just want to leave that to you guys who are legitimately undecided, and I respect it. I'm in a different place, so I don't want to impede your process.
and thank you for, that understanding. So.
Yes, because this is bad. I feel negligent here. Thank you for the extra time.
I don't think it's bad. I think it's good that you have, look, not many people end up in a dead heat for their position, for a top position like that. So that's great that we have two great candidates, and it's probably worth the investment of time to make a better decision. So I commend the board for doing that. So Dylan, Kristen, we will be putting this on the agenda for the next regular board meeting. And then we need to probably add the executive session A into executive session for that board meeting.
Sure, I can update the agenda. It posts tomorrow, so that information will go in there. If you'd like, I'm also happy to email both candidates tomorrow, since we indicated maybe a decision this week, and you can just let them know that the board needs further time to deliberate, because they're both excellent candidates, and expect to make a decision next week.
Tell them we will make a decision for sure next Tuesday, and thank you for doing that. And I'm going to move on to agenda. We're going to skip executive session, agenda item 10. Do we have agenda item 11, new business notifications for next board meeting, which we've done here? Is there any other new business or any items?
I would just ask a question. How would the board feel about moving a couple of items off of the agenda next week until we have selected a candidate? And I would think it would be wise for us to include that chosen candidate in any future discussions we have about those meaty items that we face.
I agree with you. That's fine, and you can do the additions or deletions to the agenda at the beginning of the next board, or you could tell Kristen, just let her know
Well, I'm
They-
just asking everybody's opinion.
I agree.
I'm
I
okay with deleting some items.
I'm okay actually with deleting them because I would agree that I don't know exactly specifically which items, but I can take a guess. But yeah, some of them should probably be taken on by whoever the full-time person may be. And
We're
before
not
the meeting.
deleting them, we're just postponing them.
Postponing, yes, table them, whatever you want to call it, yes.
Yeah, because otherwise we're just all going to be saying the same things to each other we've already said about those
Yes,
items.
agreed.
So are you
Okay.
going to do that? No, because I don't know which items you're talking about, but I know we have like a lot of status kind of reports coming up and moving things along. So you're going to do that at the next meeting so we can all agree on what agenda items to take off.
Sure.
You want to go through that this time? Yeah.
I'll try to communicate that before Tuesday.
Okay. So do we have any other additional new business, or can I close item 11?
No, but I would like to congratulate ourselves on this process, because I learned something at every step of the way about these candidates, and my decision and my internal selection flip-flopped pretty much on everyone, resumes and the questions and whatnot. So I think we're getting a robust. I'm glad we didn't have too many more candidates. Who knows where my mind would be, but thank you.
Okay. Then I'm going to move on to item 12. I'm going to motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
No discussion. Call to vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 It's
And no.
unanimous. 5 ayes, 0 nays. Alex, did you catch everything?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your all the effort tonight. I know. I hope nobody's frustrated with the outcome of this, but I think it's. I think everyone understands the gravity of the situation, and we have these two amazing candidates. And I guess I would like to commend everybody for taking that time to do the right thing.
And
So-
also thank you to the staff online for supporting this meeting and for your patience and input.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, good night. Thank you all.
Good night.